Board of Selectmen, Sewer Commissioners. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the two newest members of the board, but by far not the most junior members of the board, Mr. Patrick Trepiano. Patrick, I'm going to have trouble with that name, but I'll get it.
Tropiano.
If you'd like to make a comment to the townspeople, that'd be great. You got to talk right onto that thing, though, so they can.
How's that better?
That's better.
It's really great to be here, and I hope to make everybody proud that they elected me, and I thank you very much. And let's go.
I was saying, and to my right is Mrs. Whiteside. Mrs. Whiteside has been elected as well. If you'd like to make a comment.
Thank you.
You got to get right on it.
Yep. I hope to, as I said earlier in my campaign, bring dignity, respect, and working for all citizens of the town of Wareham to the forefront. I intend to spend the rest of my life here, and I would like it to be a pleasant place for me to live, not one where people say, "You used to teach in the high school?" It's not appropriate. We need to all pull together, and we need to turn this town around. Thank you.
And a long life.
And a long life.
There you go. Okay. The first order of business, I need a clerk for the meeting, because we don't have one of those at this moment.
I'll do that. Go ahead.
Can I have a motion for Mr. Slavin to be the clerk?
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Second. Question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. You're it.
Roll
Thank you,
call.
Alan.
All 5 selectmen are present. Town administrator, Mr. Sullivan, is present as well.
Okay. Any announcements of the board?
No.
I have two. One is on a sad note, Mr. Bill Minot of the Minot family that 60-something years ago so generously donated what we call today the Minot Forest to the town, passed away very recently. Even in death, he remains an incredibly generous individual. His significant other has requested that in lieu of any flowers or any arrangements at his funeral, that people make contributions to support the Minot Forest. This can be done by sending checks made out to the town of Wareham -Minot Forest Fund to the care of our treasurer. So again, Mr. Minot was very involved in the forest during his life. Always very interested. When I served on the Minot Forest Committee, he stopped by several meetings, had suggestions, loved the forest even though he no longer was part of the family, no longer actually owned it. So anyway, that's that. The other thing is the YMCA is having a swim-a-thon on Saturday the 20th. You can contact the YMCA for more details about that. Apparently you can swim either for time or for distance, and this is to raise money.
We have town meeting preview Thursday, April 11th, 6:30 p.m., Town Hall Auditorium, presented by the Onset Protective League and Town Moderator Claire Smith. Also, as an announcement, this Saturday, the Wareham Fire and Water District has their election. Goes, I think, from 10 to 4 at the water station on Cranberry Highway, Route 28. It would be nice if people actually came and voted. Most people don't realize we actually have a water district that has elections. So I'd urge everybody to come out and vote. There's a tight election, I believe, for the clerk, so it'll be worthwhile to come out. Thank you.
Mrs. Whiteside, anything?
I actually have a lot, but I was going to save it till later.
Well, if you have announcements, we can do them now.
Oh, well, the only announcement is that I started working as a liaison to the school committee. And I went to their workshop budget last week. So I have
Okay.
some thing, I can probably answer questions if you.
All right, that we can do
Yep.
under liaison.
Yep.
That's fine. Mr. Sullivan, you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
I just have one request.
Oh.
I do have one request. It's because I'm really old-fashioned, and I don't think that any one of the people at this table ought to have any electronics on that ring, bark, sing, or do anything. In other words, if we have a telephone, I don't know why we have it on. If you're using your little iPad or whatever, I think that's wonderful. I'm envious that you know how to do it. But I think it's outrageous that somebody would be texting or anything like that. So I would like an understanding from you gentlemen that we ain't going to do that.
Has anybody got their phone on?
Mine
Using
is
their
on
phone?
vibrate right from the beginning.
Vibrate only.
My iPad is off as far as receiving anything outside, it's strictly internal to notes.
Thank you. That was easy.
Would anyone like to oh, I did have one. In May, I'll have more information as we move forward, but there'll be a walk along the Cape Cod Canal starting at the train bridge for cystic fibrosis. My cousin had actually sent me the details, but he didn't send me times and things like that, so I believe it's May the 14th. I would assume it's in the morning. It's a 3 or 5 mile walk. And all the money benefits cystic fibrosis, so we'll get more details on that coming up. And as the summer approaches, if your organization is having an event, we'd like to know about it so that Mr. Sullivan can get it up on the website and that we can try to advertise for you here on Tuesday nights so that maybe we can bring some additional people to your events. Would anyone like to address the board this evening? Mr. Barros?
One thing, my name is Gerald Barrows, precinct 4. And I noticed when you was getting away from the meeting, you always used to say, is anybody else recording this meeting? They'll let you know. They don't do that no more?
Yeah, I don't think, I think it was flash photography Walter used to ask, or if anybody was recording.
No, because I mean, they said it before on the ethics committee, they do it in the water department.
Yeah, and if they record, yeah, we should ask that, okay.
No, I'm just, and
Yeah, I know Walter used to ask
yeah.
that all
The
the
main
time.
the main reason why I'm up here is because I've asked before about that $210,000 that the district hasn't paid the town yet. What I would like to know is how much is it going to cost us? Is there interest on that the town will bill the district when they pay it, or they're going to pay just $210,000? And also, what is it costing the taxpayers for the lawyers fighting this? The town lawyers and the district. And just because they got a retainer, the retainer is not for nothing.
Right.
There must be some kind of a because I know it's going to be more than $210,000. They're not telling anybody, and that's going to be taken up. The taxpayers are going to pay that. Nobody's saying nothing.
I can tell you, I don't know what the water district is paying, because obviously we don't govern that body. Our lawyer, who's town council, we pay him a stipend every month. There's no additional charge to us to go after that $210,000. The last we discussed it was in executive session, so I'll ask Mr. Sullivan if there's any update for you that he can talk about in public without the board hearing it first. I mean, has there been any word coming back that you can discuss?
No, Mr. Barrows, not at this moment. So I wouldn't be able to tell you if there'd be interest tacked on to that or anything of that manner at this time.
Well, they've had the money for a while. I would assume that we're going to get 210 plus whatever was held in that account,
Well, that plus,
right?
the reason,
Wouldn't you think?
That's all part of...
Mr. Bowen's task.
the reason why I'm asking, because that, I know you're going to get the 210, but how much is it costing us besides in that
Well, and
money?
you're paying on both sides here.
And
You're paying-
that money is going to be paid by the taxpayers.
Right. And where you live, you're paying on both sides.
Thank you.
You're paying on the water department
That's
side
why
as
I
well
like to know.
as.
I wish they could get it straightened out quick, because I know it's costing money.
Well, we don't have $210,000 to be thrown around, so we're aggressively pursuing it. unfortunately, sometimes when you get legal people involved, you know how that goes. Did you have something, Mr. White?
Good evening. I'm Bob White. And I certainly want to congratulate the two new selectmen and hope that they have a successful career on our board. We certainly need a successful board.
Thank you.
I wanted to indicate that Thursday, Wareham's Coffee Hour. This week, Sal Pena is going to be there and talk about the TIF.
That's a good one.
He's also going to talk about the plans for Merchant's Way,
Smile and Sal.
your own Sal. Thank you.
Bob,
Thank you.
Have a good meeting.
excuse me.
Anybody else?
It's Thursday at 9 o'clock, yes.
I have one thing.
In room 225 in the Multi-Service Center.
Bob,
Hang on, Bob.
I just have one thing,
You
Bob.
have a question.
I hope you'll invite us when we're not running to come and visit with you. I'd love to do that.
You just did.
I missed it.
Thank you, Patrick. We'll be sure to include you or include any of the members of the board. We simply regarded you as being very high profile and very busy, so we only bothered you during campaign time.
Well, it seems like that's when we go and do those visits is when we're campaigning, but it's nice to go there.
Yes,
Just to go.
Anytime we can get a free cup of coffee, brother, you know,
And donuts.
and donuts. Too.
The donuts.
Well, I,
Actually,
I don't need
I have
the
to stay
donuts.
away from that, but
Mr. Chairman, just to remind Bob, I and then in the middle of it, Mr. Slavin went to the coffee hour to talk about the post-blizzard wrap-up with some of the folks.
That's right, you did. Thank you very much.
So there is a precedent here for you, Patrick.
We'll call you in from time to time to report to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
there's a lot of questions, Bob, about the districts lately. We get a lot of questions about that, how that works. A lot of new people don't understand, so they might be some good people to get in there too, you know. But yeah, it's always fun to have coffee. Anybody else? All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Dave, put your hand up early on. 'Cause we're moving along, brother.
I didn't want to come up here.
Huh?
I didn't want to be here.
Ah. Well, you want to go back to your seat?
Dave Walton, District 3. No, I was sitting there. I didn't want to come up here, but I think someone should. We're into April now. The snow has melted. And this is not directed at the Board of Selectmen, Public Works. It's not directed at the Town Hall. It's directed to the people of the town of Wareham. These are not vacation people. They're not tourists. They're not drivers through. These are people who live in this town, and we have to stop. We have to stop using the roads as rubbish disposal areas. Now that the snow has melted, there's not a road in this town that isn't absolutely disgusting. And it's not the fault of the town workers to clean it. It's the fault of the people who live here and don't care to keep it clean. And you know we're going to have people who are on that committee are going to come up and be saying the same thing. And I'm not talking about the beaches. I'm talking about the roads. Doggone it, have some pride in the town. I've said it before, and it bothers me. That's why I didn't want to come up. Thank you.
All right, Dave. You know, Saturday, I have a cousin I haven't seen in years, or his brother, or his family, and I saw this cystic fibrosis thing on Facebook. And I said, well, I'm friends with the person. I must know. So I did a little dig, and sure enough, it's my aunt's son, who's my first cousin. So I went out to their little yard sale, and she was telling me that this house has been in their family for 30 years. And she goes out, it's out at Swiss Beach, so there's no, trash pickup. And she's out there every day, worse than the summer. And she lives right in the heart of the, the weekers, I call them, where they come and party for their vacations for the week. And she says she spends 2 hours every morning out there picking up trash, and there's just no way to deal with it other than for the local people who live here year-round to deal with it out there. So
Actually, that was, Mr. Chairman, if I
Yeah.
may, one of the suggestions I was going to make was a year and a half ago. I think there was a very active community group that went around. They chose portions of the town every other weekend and went around with their bags and gloves and picked up all the garbage.
Right.
I'd like to see that group reactivated. But the other thing is that I don't see any anti-littering signs in town. None. And I remember seeing them and what the fine is. I mean,
What is the fine? Do you remember?
I think it was 50, but
If
know,
you get
we're going
caught
back.
throwing something out the window?
Yeah.
$50.
So, you know, a lot of people travel with electronics. Click, click, take a picture of Ralph Grab a Sandwich throwing his trash out the window. Turn it in.
You're right. Okay.
But I'd
Anybody
like some.
else before we? Okay. Got some minutes to approve, Alan?
I have some minutes, but we have a public hearing at 7:15, and
Oh.
Mr. Smith is here, so
Thank you.
be good to get him in, get him
Uh,
taken care of.
Give a motion, Mr. Smith, is it? Come on up. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion,
moved.
so,
Motion made and seconded on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 500. Public meeting is open at 7:19. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, it's good to be here. Thank you. David Smith from Factory 5 Racing.
If you would take a few minutes and tell us what your application is about, why you're doing what you're doing, and give yourself a little infomercial.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind.
First of all, at the beginning of the town council meeting, you guys mentioned events. Every year we have an annual open house event. It's open to the public, the residents of Wareham. It's on June 15th. We have police and fire and free food, and it's a car show. So I figured I might as well mention that, get a plug out there. And as far as the cystic fibrosis walk, my daughter Jenny has CF, and we just donated 30 grand. We did a hot rod on Speed TV's Car Warriors, and that check was given about 2 weeks ago at the Boston headquarters. We do a lot of fundraisers. I've done that bridge walk, so if anyone wants to go on that Bourne bridge walk, it's really a great event. And the money goes to a good cause. My daughter's 13 now, and she has CF.
God bless.
So Factory 5 Racing has been in Wareham for 17 years. And we started out, just my brother and I started a small company, and we've become really the world's largest manufacturer of component cars. And people ask me what I do, and it's always a hard thing to explain because they think we build cars, and we don't. We build projects. So we're a parts and engineering company. And part of the confusion on this application, I think, is understanding the nature of what we do and why we're seeking this dealer license. Certainly we're not looking to open a used car lot. When I was involved in some legislation with Deval Patrick's office and with a couple state senators for small volume vehicle registration, and I'm on a board with SEMA on a small volume manufacturer's bill. And why it's important is because with the proliferation of a lot of alternate drive vehicles, there's a lot of companies making really innovative and cool designs like ours. And when they go to try to register the vehicle, like in Massachusetts, if you have a battery electric vehicle, we did a full-on battery electric hot rod, could not be registered in the state. There's no emissions, there's no onboard diagnostics, so there has to be a methodology of testing and registering and driving these cars. Well, we worked in Massachusetts with the governor's office, and we passed a bill 2 years ago, which is a small volume manufacturer's bill. So if a person's going to build his own car, a hot rod, a Cobra replica, something of the sort that we sell the parts for, then it's easier to register the car and to make it emissions legal, to make it crash and safe worthy so that the parts on it are DOT approved parts. And so in the process, we were looking for manufacturer's plates. And unbeknownst to me, not since 1950 has there been an automotive company in Massachusetts. Now, we needed manufacturer's plates so that we could test our new model, our 818. It's an all-new design, and it would have applied to the battery electric hot rod. And so Deval Patrick's office said, look, you have to, the only accommodation we have for manufacturer's plates, Michigan has manufacturer's plates, Massachusetts doesn't. So you can get a dealer and get dealer plates, and a dealer plate covers the same use. So I went through the process of applying, and I appreciate your board taking the time to consider our application. The purpose of it is to be able to drive, and every once in a while we do have a show car, demo car like this hot rod we built for cystic fibrosis. We cannot register it and legally transfer it without sales tax in Massachusetts because we're not an authorized dealer. So we would probably likely use our dealer license for For sure, development testing and long-term durability testing of a new design, a new car, which we need right now. And the second use would be for the periodic sale of a demo car or a show car. If you come to our showroom, we have examples of our cars in the plant, and a lot of folks in Wareham have been through our plant. Every once in a while, when we have a new model vehicle, like our Mark IV Cobra supersedes our Mark III, we don't have a use for the Mark III anymore. It was built to show customers what these cars look like. And now it's very hard for me to sell it because it's an asset. It's a vehicle, but it's not registered and titled. And a dealer license would enable me to transfer ownership to someone in Massachusetts or in another state without having to pay sales tax on that transaction, which is appropriate.
Questions from the board? Patrick?
No, I'm okay. I know exactly what he's got in mind.
Trophy.
No problem.
I'll get it right.
Not a problem.
How's that?
Yeah, there's only one question I'm gonna have, and that is relevant to the number of vehicles that he would be keeping on the site. It wouldn't affect him because of what he does, but at some point down the road, if he sold his organization and somebody continued to manufacture vehicles, it could spread out onto the property, you know what I'm saying, without any restraint. In his case, not a problem. Works out perfect for him, and you should have this license, because it is the only way that you can do what you need to do. But if all of a sudden you became somebody else, and they decided to manufacture more vehicles for whatever reason, then the property, you know what I'm saying? We always have a limit on the number of vehicles that a person's allowed on the property, because otherwise it kind of becomes a big problem in the, you know what I'm saying?
I think it's a reasonable question, and I don't know what the code or the methodology would be, but we would be happy to stipulate that it would be a non-transferable license, so that if the business was sold or if the business changed its operating structure, we're not interested in bringing a used car dealership lot to Wareham. Has plenty of them, and that's not our business. We wouldn't consider that an asset of the business if it was a deal license. So I don't know how you would stipulate that in the license. We're happy to agree to that because it would be outside the intended use of what we're applying for.
There's actually no provision in the law for that, I don't think, but I think that they do have to come back for a transfer.
I was going to say, is there a renewal period?
Yeah.
If he sold it,
They'd have to come for the transfer.
That license comes back to.
I'd be happy to stipulate in the minutes that if it came back, that Factory 5 would have no interest in wanting to transfer, nor would we attempt to transfer that license.
We ran into that with Spirit.
Right.
If you remember.
Right.
When that license had to come back here. It couldn't be just sold to the new owner.
It would also have effect with the planning board or ZBA as far as the actual business and what can be done in the business. I don't have any worries with it.
There is one problem, is when they get into bankruptcy, the court would then hold the license as an asset.
It's collateral.
And then it becomes an issue, because now, even though we say, you know, we may not want to transfer it, we really don't have any choice, because the bankruptcy court now takes control over it. And they consider it an asset, and they'll try to sell it in order to leave some of the bills. So that's when you run into sort of a little gray area here, you know?
It seems to me that they've been in business for 17 years. I know a couple of people who actually have built your cars. 17 years from a startup is a very good record, and thank you very much for sticking with us.
Well, we're happy to be in Wareham. It's been a great place to do business,
Oh, yeah, it's
and
awesome.
really, it is. And as far as New England, people commonly complain about New England, and I say I don't know what New England you're talking about, because we have a town that encourages business. We have a great workforce. We have great vocational schools in the area. We have a deep water port in New Bedford. Great importation. We've got a lot of advantages over a lot of areas. And you know, when I think about Rhode Island and some of the other surrounding states, Massachusetts is a logical one, and that's why, you know, my politics don't necessarily jibe with Deval Patrick's, but we were able to work together because really there was a pro-business climate there that was also interested in protecting the environment and making sure that we do things in a safe and effective manner.
Awesome. Right. Does anyone here in the audience would like to comment for or against the application? No? Any other questions from the board?
No, thank you.
Make a motion to accept the motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
Motion so made.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing closed at 7:28. 500. Can I have a motion on the application now?
Make a motion for Factory 5 Racing, 9 Toll Road, Wareham, for a Class 1 license in accordance with provisions of Chapter 140 of the Massachusetts General Laws.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you very much. And,
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And then we'll get all this signed, and you can swing by and see Shirley and Janet.
Very good. Open
We'll
house the
have it ready.
15th. You're all invited, obviously, and look forward to seeing you.
Do you know what time that walk is? on
The
canal?
CF walk, it's usually in the morning, like 9 a.m. till noon.
9
But
till noon.
yeah, that's what I did about 3 years ago.
Okay.
There's 2 weekends in May that are popular for the CF walk, and they're all over, from Boston to Providence to the Cape. There's probably about 15 or 20 cities, but the Cape one down by Bourne is a pretty popular one.
I'm looking at that calendar. Is that the right? Yeah. You think it's the 12th? Because that kinda
It
rings a
sounds
bell.
right, yeah.
We don't want to pass up bad information. I thought you might.
Yeah, it's on the cystic fibrosis website. It's cff.org. And so if you go right to that website, every regional walk is listed on that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
David, I just
and,
want to thank you for keeping your business in Wareham.
Oh,
Yes,
it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Keep it on.
Yeah, thank you.
Okie dokie. Minutes?
Minutes. We have the minutes of March 12th, 2013. Take a motion.
Motion to accept the minutes from March 12, 2013 of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners meeting.
Motion made, seconded. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
One abstain.
302. Oh, that was the 12th right now.
Yep.
19th?
Next. Take a motion to accept the minutes of March 19th, 2013.
I move to accept the minutes from the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners meeting on March 19th, 2013.
Motion made and seconded. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Two.
302.
I'll take a motion for the minutes of March 26th, 2013.
Motion to accept the Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners minutes from the meeting of March 26, 2013.
Motion made and seconded on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstained.
302. Okie dokie. Mr. Campina?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Congratulations to those who are new, and those re-elected, congratulations, and the other two, nice to see you. Mr. Chairman, abatement, this is an abatement for 7 Parkwood Drive. As it says here, we're asking for an abatement of $298, which is the second half fiscal year 2013. What happened, originally back in November, I believe it was, 2012, we approved an abatement of, I believe it was $49.67. At the same time, we were going to change his EDU from 2 to 1. He had gone through the building department and made a 2-family into a single family. So therefore, we were going to reduce his EDU. What happened was it was never changed in the computer, so the computer picked up the 2 EDUs. So we've corrected it, and now we're asking to give him back his $298 that he shouldn't have paid.
Sounds very reasonable.
Any questions from the board?
Guy, did that mean he paid 2 EDU rates, or he has not paid 2?
He's paid 2 EDU rates because it wasn't changing the computer from 2 to 1, so the computer billed out 2 EDUs, which was incorrect. So it's 2 EDUs is $298 each half, so he got 2 of them at $298. He's responsible for 1, but not for 2, so we're asking to give him back the second.
Anything else?
It shows it all here in the payments.
Yeah, it does.
No question.
And I want to thank Mr. Johnson for his patience. He's been very patient. It troubled him, so I want to thank him for his patience and assure him that we are taking care of it.
With patient people.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Want a motion on that? Make a motion.
If you want to pass it, we need a motion.
Bill, you have another.
Okay, it's up to you. Whatever you want.
Make a motion to go ahead and process the EDU refund for the one EDU rate for that's over here. It's actually account number 792648, map 38, lot 384, 7 Parkwood Drive, Raymond Johnson.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. All right, now you're gonna tell us some good news about you found a bunch of money?
No.
Is that coming from you? Or is
No,
Mr.
I
Sullivan
haven't.
gonna give us that good
I haven't
news?
found any money. I'm still looking, but I haven't found any money. No, sir.
Well, I hope every week, one of them's gonna pop up and say,
Here we go.
okay, we got it straightened out for you, it's not a problem. Well, I think that, here in the next month or so, we should probably sit down and have a meeting of the minds and see what's out there, what's available, grant money, whatever it takes to try to. I know that Mr. Sullivan had some issues that he was checking on with some bonding things, and so I'd like to have a conversation about this maybe in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, I agree.
What do you
I
think?
agree.
Did anybody take you up on the locks?
No,
The
not
water
yet.
locks?
I've got one call.
Oh, good.
Yes, absolutely, and I told him what he had to do.
Hate to create a
So-
policy that
And nobody
nobody
uses it.
wants to use,
Yes,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. It's a
And
good
speaking
policy.
of that, any other policies coming up soon?
Yes, I'm ready to go with a few. I've got a lot of things I'm ready to move forward with.
You what?
A lot of things I'm ready to move forward with. I've got a lot of things.
Well, where are they? I mean,
I-
you can move forward with them in your
I've
office,
been
but unless
pretty-
you bring them to us,
yeah, I
we
know.
can't.
I've been
We
pretty
can't.
preoccupied. I apologize.
Oh, you've been preoccupied.
Yes, I
now.
have. Been pretty
I think
preoccupied.
you've been on vacation.
No, I wish I had been.
All right.
Right about now, I wish I had a vacation.
Okay.
Now, we had some things that we've been really going through, some schooling. We've have some projects preparing for this. We're right now in our permit season, so we spent the last month preparing for that. I'd like to say that we're in permit as of this moment, and it's pretty exciting. So we're gearing. It's the last month or two. It's been all about gearing for our April opening, which is our permit season beginning, and it runs through October 31st. So it's quite a bit of times at the plant. We've done quite a bit of tours. Schools have been coming through, and Buzzards Bay Coalition's been coming through. And I'd like to invite the new selectmen down for a tour at your convenience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say that Mr. White is our producer in the program we're doing, Wonder Where the Yellow Went, which is an educational program for the public. The first episode has actually been aired. I didn't see it. I've had some comments. But it's actually aired, and we're talking about the responsibilities of the installers, responsibility of the homeowners, and things of that sort for the projects that just started in Contract 2. And next, we're going to talk about the pipe, what goes through it. And we're going to recommend what you put down the toilet, how to appreciate that, how to use that. And then we're going to take you through the entire process of that water that you flush coming to the plant. So it's going to be a very great educational time. And so we're working on the second episode now.
Good
Should be
stuff.
out very shortly. So that's
Is that
what
it?
we're
Where
doing.
is that? Up on?
It's on TV, whatever this TV is, WCTV. Our producer is Mr. White. He's doing
smiling.
a great job. He's doing a great job. I tell you.
He's smiling away. He's pointing at Bob White.
I give him all the credit. He's been an inspiration. He's been for a year. He's been working on this, maybe a little longer.
Did
Really.
he wear a wetsuit when he was using the camera?
Yes, he's been wet more than once. We've taped inside the pump stations to the depths of them. We've taped construction. We're taping the project that we have going on now. We've taped the entire plant, the operations, and so now we're putting it together with segments, and we're going to talk about it, and he'll bring the pictures into it. It's a total educational I don't think most people realize what goes on, the costs involved, the things that really happen there, and I think it's a good opportunity to educate. And we're also encouraging the kids to get involved. I mean, we're talking about clean water. We're talking about the environment. It's such an exciting thing, and I think it's time that people really learned about what happened. We get questions about
That's
why is
very
this
good.
cost, why is this cost, and all these questions. So it's a good chance to see what really happens. And so when you make your decisions, you have some good information to make them on. So we're excited about it. So
Okay. Any other sewer business questions? Seeing none, I do have a question. We had a road that was going to be regraded, and then the fix was in around Christmas, I think it was. It was an easy fix. Remember the easy fix?
So
When is it going to be done?
I think
I
it's
mean,
on Mr. Gifford's
Back then it was
schedule.
2 weeks, then it was 3 weeks.
No, it was weather.
Yeah.
Asphalt's getting ready to come in. We're starting to do some projects in Oakdale.
We're waiting for the guy from
for asphalt.
GLSA.
Asphalt, yeah. So asphalt plants are opening. So anytime now, that we're starting to move forward on all the projects, and that's one of them that's in the forefront. So we're going to pick up the.
Are we talking about the same thing?
We're talking about picking up the. It's a catch basin, and that's what we're talking about. We're going to cut it out, pick it up, and re-asphalt it.
Well, would they have done that at Christmas time?
No,
I don't
because-
think so.
No, we asked them to, but they couldn't because asphalt wasn't available. So we abandoned it until the spring. Yes.
We're talking about the same, where we saw the pictures where the water.
Yes, that's
where the water
Mattapoisett
runs
Road.
Right by the drain.
Yes, sir. Mattapoisett Road. Exactly. It's a drain that that wasn't
When
there.
can we
that put-
expect that done? I mean, that's a little.
Let me get a date for you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to promise you, but very near future, because we're doing Cherry Street, and this is, and why I referenced that is we're going to order some asphalt. So we're doing Cherry Street, part of Avenue A, and Cremisa. So it'll all be done at the same time, and
It was an
it's on
easy
the
fix,
agenda.
as I recall.
Yeah, it's not. It's a very straightforward, easy
Yeah,
fix. Yes, sir.
we saw pictures one
Absolutely.
night where they brought pictures in the water from the rain. There's the hole, and the water was going down that way. Instead of going in the hole, it was going like that.
Very rebellious water, yes, sir. It
Easy
was
fix.
very,
It's
very
gonna be
rebellious
done
water.
right
Yeah,
away.
well, just redirect it. Absolutely.
March.
So you had to cut
April.
and redirect.
Okay. So I can send that gentleman an email and say that it will be done by May 1st.
Well,
Wow.
well, here's my point. I don't have a date for it. I'll get you a date to give you to
Wow,
call.
serious business.
No,
We
it
paid a
is.
lot of money for this
I'll
project.
give you a date, absolutely. And I've got people on that straight Mattapoisett, they're waiting to come back from winter vacation, I should call it,
Huh.
that I've got some front yards to fix too. So it's all going to be done, sir, in a
Well, we
very
have
near
people that we're
future.
starting to charge a betterment for, and they're paying this $18,000 or whatever it is,
Absolutely.
and
And I'm
the
telling you,
water's missing the hole.
I'm excited for them because now they can take them 2-bedroom homes and make 5-bedroom homes.
Well,
They are better. I'm excited for them.
You keep saying that,
Well,
but
it's reality.
it's reality.
Yes, sir.
It's also a bum job if the water doesn't go where it's supposed to go.
I certainly understand. We're going to fix it.
So because you can have more bedrooms.
Absolutely. What I'm saying is that I agree with you that we will take care of it. It is an issue. But let's not lose sight of the fact that they are bettered. There is a betterment. There's a betterment. And I don't want them to think that because it's missing the catch basin that they were mishandled,
No, the
chaffed, or
town-
whatever.
the
The
town-
betterment is there. Absolutely.
The town is the one who's paying the price for that.
Correct. And
We're the ones who paid the money for the job.
Yes, and we definitely will straighten it out.
Job should be
Absolutely.
done correctly.
I agree.
Okay.
No, I totally agree. We're just that the timing, and we'll definitely get it done.
Has nothing to do with the number of bedrooms. It has to do with the water not
No,
going.
betterment does, not the water going. I agree with you, but the
Has nothing
betterment.
to do with the water going down the hole,
I agree.
right?
No, yes, I agree.
Anything else? Did you have anything on your list for sewer?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Hey, listen. I'm going to give you your number.
Absolutely. I get them now anyways. Just add to the list. I'll take them. Not a problem.
I know.
I really don't
You
mind.
told me it was every time I asked the question, it's an easy fix, it's going to be done. But
But
we're
your timing,
into April.
Your timing is everything, and I agree with you.
Well-
We could have done it, but if we had cut into it and not been able to asphalt it, we would have made a problem worse. So it's best to wait to do it right when we
Wow.
when we can do it in season. That's
I
all.
do have one question for
Yeah,
you, sir.
absolutely.
I did tour it 30 years ago.
Oh, then you're
How many changes?
quite a
am I-
bit. 30 years ago, it was just simply removing solids.
Yep.
It's all we're doing,
Okay.
throwing it out in the ground and letting it leach through and collecting the sludge. Now it's actually a biological nutrient removal
Okay.
system, so it's quite extensive.
I
We've had
call
the
you to
EPA
come see it?
down. You come down, you'll really be excited.
Okay.
It's remove nitrogen and phosphorus, and yeah, it's really
Thank you.
cutting edge. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, town business. Every year in April, following the election, the Board of Selectmen reorganizes itself. At issue is the chairmanship of the board. If anyone would like to either nominate themselves or someone else, then we'll have some discussion about it.
May I make a comment before?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think it's
We'll have
important.
the discussion before. I like that idea.
Well, I won't discuss before if you don't want me to.
No, go right ahead.
Okay.
No, it's
I think it's really important to have a chairman who understands the function of being a chairman of the board. And my understanding of a chairman of anything is that he or she acts as a facilitator for the board and as a facilitator between whatever board it is and the people or whatever that he or that we serve. I think it's important that we have somebody in the chair who wants to be there. I think it's important for somebody to be in the chair who has been on the board longer than Mr. Tropiano and myself, which is like a week and something.
Something like that.
Yeah. Although we had previous experience, it is not current previous experience. So my preferences would be to the two gentlemen who are sort of paying no attention. Mr. Slavin and Mr. Teitelbaum. But that would only be my way of looking at it.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Tropiano.
I'd like to make a motion that we make Peter Teitelbaum the chairman of the board.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Anything on the question?
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
And if I call you up and tell you that I think you're being obstructionist by keeping things off the agenda, are you going to change your ways? Or are you not going to be criticized for that?
I would hope you wouldn't have to make that call, and frankly, if that were the case, I would hope you would bring it to my attention right here.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I certainly have some commentary. I was hoping that the board wouldn't go that way. I, too, share concerns about the chairmanship of this board, and I think it's one of the first real major decisions that the board makes. And I don't agree with the selection for several reasons. And it's not something I've said behind his back. I've told him right to his face or on the phone. One, he's the most junior member of the Board of Selectmen with the least amount of experience. And actually has served the board less than a year and has less than a year to go. So when I think of Mr. Teitelbaum in terms of roles, I would I would potentially support him being the clerk for someone who has more experience for the board. He's been, there are other issues that took place here around before all the campaign started that I wasn't happy with his behavior towards Mrs. Winslow. I felt that he should have done some things to her face, and he didn't. And so there's a trust issue I have there. But that's his business. That's his behavior. And I felt that if he'd do it to her, he'd do it to any one of us. And so I'm not too thrilled with that, and he knows that. I told him that as well. So I'm very disappointed that that's the way it happens here. I would have thought that if Alan didn't want to do the job, and I'm not sure that anybody's asked him to do the job, because that shouldn't really have been discussed until this evening by the open meeting law. So, I would have suggested Alan. Did anybody ask you if you're interested?
No, I volunteered quite a while ago that I did have an interest
You
in
didn't
being
want to
chair.
do it?
No.
Then I would have tended to favor either Mrs. Whiteside or Mr. Trapiano will have experience as a selectman, and they could have had Mr. Titlebaum, who's the junior member, and not a year's experience as their clerk, so that he could learn the things that Mrs. Whiteside had mentioned. But be that as it may, does any other commentary?
I would say that I would not have accepted the nomination had it been made for me to be chairman.
I wouldn't either. I'd have to say the same thing. Look at, we were selectmen in the past, but we have some catching up to do too. There's a lot of things that come and go in this job. It's a very difficult job as a whole, and I think I have some catching up to do as well, no matter what my experience is. And so I would have not accepted it either.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstained? 410. Or
No,
4311. There you go.
You're now the chair.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to doing the best job I can here. I'm going to need a lot of help, just as any chairman does. I've had the privilege of sitting here for the past 10 months, observing Mr. Holmes do it. He's done a lot of things to keep the board out of trouble. And I think I've absorbed quite a bit from his example, even though he may not believe so at the present moment. But nonetheless, I welcome the challenge, and I ask for everyone's help. The next order of business will be to elect a clerk for the coming year.
I move that Alan Slavin be clerk.
Second.
Okay.
Do you accept the nomination?
I'll go ahead and accept with the provision that, since it's new for me, and I'm used to doing different things, as I do something that goes off the farm, or I say something wrong, you correct me instantly. We can't afford to make mistakes, so I have no problem being interrupted in the middle of saying something wrong.
You talking about like what you did to that poor pastor last week?
He hasn't recovered from that yet.
I actually heard about that.
He probably never will either.
I heard about that at the ball field again on Saturday.
I'm sure you did. So
Poor pastor's still wondering what
if I have a senior
people
moment,
were
please
doing
break
at 3
break my
months
senior
in.
moment for me. Thank you.
That was hilarious. He didn't think it was funny. He didn't know. He didn't have a clue what
He
you
didn't
were
have a
talking.
clue what I was saying.
No, well, with that in mind, at least he got that out of the way before we make him clerk.
I'll do more, I promise.
I'm sure we all will. Is there anything else to be said on this?
Call for the vote.
Okay, I call for the vote on the selection of the clerk for the coming year. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
It's 401. Congratulations, Mr. Clerk.
Maybe.
Okay. Next up.
Next up is a discussion on guidance to the town administrator for the next year, which would include 2013 and fiscal year in 2014. I had put this on the agenda only because we have such pressing issues coming forward that there's been questions about, from the Finance Committee and other people, about whether or not the Board of Selectmen has really stepped up and followed the charter and bylaws as pertains to guidance and policy, et cetera. So I wanted to put this on as an agenda item to start, and that hopefully when we come back in the next meeting, everybody will have put down some things that they want to basically put together for some guidance as far as it goes. We have one issue that I think we should talk about right now. It's not, because it's a discussion, we can just discuss it and just give our basic feelings. We have an issue. Last year we get very close to our tax levy. I believe we're running into some situations with some departments, even though Chairman Holmes had mentioned to our town administrator about going over budget and stuff, but just some things are out of control, things are happening. I am concerned that we might end up going over the tax levy possible, And as a policy or probably guidance would be the best thing, that maybe as a board, giving our town administrator some guidance that he should consider doing a freeze as far as expenses, overtime, et cetera, if he feels that he's going in that direction where he's going to have an issue financially. We don't want to find out going last month or so that we basically have got a serious issue. So I think we're at that point now where we should ask that particular piece and basically come forward with that particular piece of guidance.
I agree with that, and with that in mind, looking at the agenda, we've got, that was item B under town business. Item C relates to the discussion on budget for fiscal year 2014, so with the board's indulgence, I think we're talking about kind of one and the same thing here. If we're giving guidance, we're also talking about the budget, so I think we can safely say that we're taking both of those up at once here. I agree that what we see before us, essentially, as I understand it from the FinCom, is that we're going to go into town meeting with two competing budgets. We're going to go in with one that was submitted by the town administrator. We're going to go in with a second one where the school, pursuant to their authority under the general laws and the town charter, have proposed a different budget for the schools. And so the town meeting voters will be confronted with two competing budgets and looking to decide as between those. If they opt for the more expensive school budget, it's going to exceed our tax levy. The concern there is that we are going to have to come back, most likely with a special town meeting before the October fall town meeting, to try to get that straightened out so that we can set a tax rate on time. Otherwise, if we can't set the tax rate, we have to borrow money to fund operations, and we won't get the tax rate cleaned up until spring of next year. That is something I think we all want to avoid. I think we need to discuss the ways to try to prevent that from happening. I was going to ask the board what they thought about trying to meet between now and town meeting with the other two boards at issue here, the FinCom and also the school committee. The problem is, again, the FinCom has done their work. They've gone ahead, they've voted their recommendation on the budget, they're producing the handout for town meeting, and so it's a little late in the game to be meeting with people. My feeling is we owe it to the voters, we owe it to the department heads who have to show up at town meetings, and we owe it to the taxpayers who have to pay for us to have an extra town meeting to try to avoid that at any cost. So I'd like to hear from the board to see whether there's any consensus for trying to meet with the FinCom, possibly next week, and the school committee. And, you know, what say you all?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I did visit with the school committee last week in their budget workshop, and they did vote to come to town meeting with an unbalanced budget. Having been a town employee in the school for 12 plus years, I am very familiar with the goings-on of the school district. I've spoken before about the fact that I do not believe that it is a we versus they issue. It is one tax bill, and it covers all of the municipal departments that we have. The school department happens to be one of them. When Proposition 2.5 was passed many, many years ago, this town was a very conservatively funded town. We were very proud of that. Unfortunately, we didn't move fast enough to get ahead of the curve of the wave of 2.5. In some respects, that was great because we were able to keep the tax rate low. On the other hand, it meant that capital projects didn't get done. And now, if my memory serves me, we have $22 million worth of capital projects.
70 million.
$70 million, excuse me, I'm wrong. $70 million worth of capital projects that the Capital Planning Committee says they got to get done. I like to compare the town budget to a personal budget. Doesn't matter what you do for a job. What you do is your income. And the bills that you pay are your outcome, okay? And a lot of us spend a lot of time trying to make sure that this figure is higher than this figure so that we have some kind of savings account. in the past several years, this town has done some egregious things with financing, including taking money from pockets that it should never have done and putting them into paying current bills. It's a very, 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 and one more very bad way of running a business. I think it's incumbent upon the board to do as the chairman suggests, to meet, or to offer to meet maybe tomorrow night or the next night. I don't think we can really wait and get as close because to the town meeting date actual. There are massive dollars at stake here. And there's also, in my opinion, the crippling of a school system. Crippling of a school system.
Well, the issue I have with doing something too quickly is unfortunately to meet, we have to have an agenda. If we have an agenda, we've got to post it within 48 hours. The earliest, realistically, we could meet with anybody would be Friday.
Saturday's a really nice day.
Yeah, I just,
The only issue I have with Saturday is I don't believe our town administrator is going to be able to attend, and obviously his presence in any budget discussion is probably more important than any one of us individually.
It sounds like a lame excuse, but my wife has her first day out of the house from the baby, and it will be just me having the baby at that time. So I apologize for that, but
I
that's
guess
sort of a day that I have locked up.
Well, we can think about a date here. Mr. Tropiano, you have something?
yeah, I think that this should have been done a long time ago. I don't know why we're waiting till the last second to all of a sudden try to pull this together and start talking to other boards. I mean, this is, not to jump on the board as far as what's been going on, but this is definitely something that needed to be done a long time ago.
One second. One of the issues for this board, I will say, is that we were not, and in terms of the guidance to the town administrator, fair point, but as far as the budget itself goes, we weren't apprised of what the school number was going to be. We had an inkling. We were told it was going to be 1.7 million more than Mr. Sullivan had allotted in the budget, but we really didn't get a firm number, I believe, until last week. But in any event, the goal here, I guess, is to not look back, but to look forward and see what we can do in the next 13 days. It's a compressed time frame, and I agree. But
you can never go forward until you know where you came from. So we need to talk that, maybe we dropped the ball on this, admit that we dropped the ball so that we can move forward. And I think we need to do that in a lot of the things we've done. I think we need to be involved a lot earlier with this stuff in general. And I think we all need to make a consensus here that we are going to get involved in these kinds of issues earlier. You know what I'm saying? And understand that that's where we came from. Okay, it's over. Now let's go forward. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay. Clerk Slavin?
I'm going to agree with Mr. Tropiano. This is something we should have been at a long time ago. It's in the charter. It's in the bylaws. It's something we're supposed to do. It's not just this board. It's been boards going back quite a few years have not got involved with this. And what happens is what normally goes by as normal becomes practice rather than actually following. I'm not going to blame anyone. Can't go back and fix things. We can just take what happens today going forward. I understand this is late doing this. The idea of this is just to sit down with the three major boards in town, which is FinCom, School Committee, and the Board of Selectmen. We all meet either Tuesday or Wednesday. I can say there's a possibility for Saturday if they wanted to, or we can meet a Saturday following that before town meeting and just sit down. We're not going to solve the issue. You can't solve this in a week. It's not going to happen. This has been building for 20 years plus. But what it is we need to sit down and just discuss where we're going to go, because we have a letter from the DOR which just gave us an example of what happened in another town many years ago. We can come out of town meeting with an unbalanced budget, but we have to have a special meeting before our October meeting to sit there and decide how we're going to cut the budget back to balance, and therefore what department's going to have to get cut, where the spending has to stop, etc. If we don't do that and we wait till the October town meeting, we'll probably never get our tax rate set by December 31st, which means basically people don't have to pay their tax bills till May of the following year. And the end result of that is we have to go borrow money in order to basically survive between January and May. So this is an issue that needs to be fixed, and we need to come up with some understanding. We're not going to fix it in the next 10 days, but at least the school committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee have to come up with some plan going forward for the next 60 days to see where they're going to be. I don't want to run this out and find out come October that we're still at odds and everybody's fighting with each other. The fight's over. The old, the wall's there. It's already run over us. We're on the other side, and we're starting from scratch. And today's the first day. I think we should just figure out what it is, fix it, and stop all this. It really doesn't matter who, what, or where. Today's the day we have to take up our responsibilities. Thank you.
May I
Yes.
echo your comments? I think that you've said it very well. It doesn't matter who did it or why it happened. We need to pledge as a board to work with all of the other boards
Absolutely.
and committees in this town to make this town what it can be.
Here, here.
No, I fully attend that, and I appreciate the sentiment. It matches my own. Selectman Holmes, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think the first question I would ask is directed to Mr. Sullivan to find out what the number actually stands at today.
I have it if you don't.
From the school or what we believe?
Yeah,
the
where are you
deficit
at
to be?
today on this
we
process?
went-
The other one whose job it is to deal with it. When was this from?
This is from, the paper I just gave to Mr. Sullivan is from the workshop that I attended on 4/3, where the public was not allowed to speak, but all of the principals, all school committee members, were there to see Dr. Rabinovich's plan to try and bridge the gap. And so I'm simply handing him the paper that I got from that meeting.
When I put together the final budget that's going to the printing for the finance committee documents that go out, I had the whole number on the school, what they'd voted in, not broken out as the non-net. So I'd kept their non-net spending at the 1.45 million.
Right.
And when using the net school spending of 26,213,570, that budget leaves us in a deficit for $913,034.
That's where we stand today.
That's where we stand today.
Well, the first thing I think we've heard from the board is Mr. Slavin's thought of a freeze to ensure that we stick to our guns throughout each department through the end of the fiscal year. Would you like to amplify upon that a little bit, Mr. Slavin? You alluded to it in your earlier remarks.
No, I don't believe it's not our piece to tell the town administrator how to actually implement it. I believe it's our job to let him know that we think that because there could be an issue with expenses with the tax levy, that he has to decide how he wants to do it, but give him basically our opinion that if he was to go ahead and have to do a freeze, have to do, I'm not going to say it's not going to be layoffs, but it could be furloughs, it could be no overtime, whatever. I don't think he should take the heat for that. That should come from us, basically give him a basic direction, and then he'll make the decision and come back to us and let us know what he's going to do.
So your suggestion certainly then isn't to jump down into the weeds of the various departments and do that. That's certainly his function. It's a day-to-day function. But the guidance as to where he might go looking for the money needs to come from us, I think.
No,
To some extent, I think we need to not discuss individual departments, but I think the notion of a freeze is something, that's what I mean.
Well, a freeze would basically be, it would cover everybody. It's not picking on any one area, it's freezing it. Unless he has a particular department that's a real serious issue, then he may have to go back and do a little more. But at this point here, we don't know if we're going to be short or over. It's just a precaution that we don't end up short.
I think the guidelines, one of the guidelines that we need to relate to Derek, the town administrator, is that right off the bat, no department can be overspending their budget. I mean, they just can't. It just can't happen. Even if we had lots of money, We shouldn't be overspending the budget. The only one who can spend money is town meeting, as everybody knows. They're the only ones who can spend money, the only ones who can approve spending money. So if you go ahead and you overspend your budget, and you haven't gone for a reserve fund transfer or something like that, that's clearly a violation of law. You can't overspend your budget. If you don't have the money, you don't spend it. And I think that's just, it's not a guideline, it's just a fact. And we should hold everybody's foot to the fire on that. You know, we can't be spending money outside of budgets and all of a sudden spend an extra couple $100 grand someplace, and then all of a sudden say, oh my goodness, you know, we're $200,000 in the hole. One of the things that I'd like to see us get again, which we used to get when I was on the board, is we used to get from the town administrator a percentage of each department of what the budget was already consumed as we went through the year. And every month we used to get that so that we knew how each department stood as far as what percentage they have used of their budget. Now, it was a little tricky because we had some budgets, of course, that were seasonal, so they would use a little more in the seasonal area, but it was easy enough to adjust. But we always knew where they stood, and of course, by putting this together, the town administrator always knew exactly where they stood as we went through the year, and it kept those problems, I think, to a very small minimum. Matter of fact, I don't think we ever had those issues. So I'd like to see us sort of send that as a guideline across.
We did that when I was a selectman as well, and may have been quarterly, but I think it was monthly. And what would happen when we got close to the end of the fiscal year and, you know, your department had only spent 60% of what you had thought you were going to when you were not seasonal and there was no reason for it, we told you to don't go out and buy 600 pounds of toilet paper,
Right.
Copying paper and pens and, you know, fancy chairs, because that's not, if you have to turn money back in, turn it back in.
Right.
And that was, you know, the town administrator did in fact control that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have those. The next one that we're getting was completed last week, is January though. We are behind about realistically 60 days on them, but we have been giving those.
Have you been getting them?
Yes.
Oh, you have? All
It's,
right.
it's something that I asked for probably about 9-10 months ago.
Okay.
It was
Well,
a little,
I
we were just
wanna-
behind the curve because we have so much stuff in front of us. It's not, it's not a good excuse, but the
It's
bottom
not a
line-
good excuse. We gotta have them.
But we have it.
I think we saw the
Also,
first one.
let me just finish, Peter. Chairman Holmes made it very, very plain to our town administrator that he didn't want anybody being spent over budget. That was loud and clear. I don't want
Okay.
anybody to think it wasn't.
Well, you know, I'm not trying to get down on Derek or jump on you about this, Derek. All I'm trying to do is try to, like, we're talking about guidelines, and I think that this is first and foremost, that the only way you can spend outside your budget is if it's an emergency and you go for a reserve fund transfer. Other than that, it shouldn't happen. I mean, and if there is a reason for it, then you go to town meeting, go back to town meeting and say, okay, I need some more money, and this is why I need it, and make the case. You know, I mean, that's the only reason that it should happen. And I mean, I know, you know, I don't care what department it is. I don't care. It just shouldn't happen. We gotta rein that in. And you know, see, the key about this to me is it's the fairness to everybody else. You know, it's the fairness to the health department and everybody else who work in the town hall, that they're on the line as much. I mean, the next thing you know, you could find yourself overspending your budget and somebody's job gets cut because somebody overspent their budget. And that's not fair to our employees. It's not fair to anybody because somebody was irresponsible, in my estimation, in overspending a budget.
Well, that's a fair point, and I think that issue was one we, and I mean collectively we as a town, not any specific we, danced around for a few years here. We managed to locate reserves that we probably, as Selectman Whiteside alluded to earlier, dipped into to patch things. I don't think those were good moves. I think they helped us a little in the short term, but they've set us up for a real problem in the long term. And I agree that employees of the town should expect us to at least do our best to try to be prudent fiscal managers so that they can come to work and hope they have jobs. And make no mistake, that's really what it's come down to now. when we cut now, it's to the bone. It's not fat. There's no big rock candy mountain out there hiding that Mr. Sullivan can tap into. His predecessors did a pretty good job of mining it all out. So we have to acknowledge that, figure out what we're going to do about this budget, and try to move forward. Again, at least begin the process of meeting with the committees. I'm aware of Mr. Slavin's comments that there is no quick fix to be had. You're not going to repair this in 13 days. You're not going to go in, magically make $900,000 go away. But the conversation needs to start now so that by the time October rolls around, we've got this straightened out before fall town meeting. We can go into fall town meeting and just adjust our accounts as we normally do, get a tax rate set, and be able to at least conduct business as normal next year. So
The other thing we need to do is we need to decide if there's going to be cuts, we've got to give them some guidelines. And my estimation is public safety and education are the two foremost things that we have to do here. And I think that is a guideline. Matter of fact, once upon a time on my board, when we had a similar issue, we voted that to relay to the town administrator that those were the two areas we wanted to protect as much as possible. Public safety, and that doesn't mean just the police department. We have other areas of public safety where you have to, in different departments that deal with public safety, obviously. But public safety and education, if we can't do that, we can't do anything. I mean, that's what, as a town, the kids are very important to us, obviously, and their safety and all of our safety is very important to us too. And all the rest of it, if push comes to shove, we've got to deal with it accordingly.
is there anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that all this talk is wonderful. However, when you get down to the facts of the matter, we did sit down with the school committee when those numbers became available. We have had several meetings with the superintendent and the school board chair. However, let's not lead people to believe that by telling Mr. Sullivan to put some kind of an expense freeze in place is going to do anything. Other than manage, and he's managing the town budget as it is. We don't need to tell him not to overspend. I think he understands that. It's his job to make sure that doesn't happen. However, we have no control, zero, over the largest department in town, which is the school department. That is controlled by the school board, or school committee, and the superintendent. So the Board of Selectmen doesn't have a role there to say, hey, let's not buy that if you can't afford it. And we obviously can't do that. I stick to this, being in this type of business, I stick to this reorganization business quite a bit, or restructure, whatever you want to call it. It has to go to town meeting, it has to go to town meeting. We need a finance person, they need a finance person. We offered to have that one person for the entire town who oversees, because I agree, this is Wareham, it's not town school. So we'd have one financial officer who saw every dime that came in and go out. We thought that was a great idea. And the last I knew, the holdup was, who would fire the person? That was the last question I was asked. Who gives a rip?
Who would fire?
It's the responsibility of both of these boards to hire and fire that person. The point of the matter is, we could have some savings there. That would chop into this 913. Any of these duplicated services we pay for, the town pays for, the school pays for, we need to start combining these services. We can actually provide better services to the citizens if these services were combined. So I don't want to call it reorganization, but I think in the charter that's what they call it. We're going to take our first stab in our own department, but by telling Mr. Sullivan not to overspend the budget, he already knows that. That's not going to cut into this. And if you have other departments beyond his control, because he doesn't control them either, it's a lot of money. So, listen, we can sit down and meet. They've made a lot of public statements to say this is what we need, and we're not budging on this. You know, olive branches, we've tried that, and I'll continue to hold an olive branch out and my hand out as long as it takes till my arm falls off. But unless there's that kind of cooperative spirit, we're actually willing to say that we're going to share these services as a town, the town of Wareham, then we're never going to get out of this mess. So that's not a negative statement, it's a positive statement. And I believe that there are people on that school board who understand what we're talking about because they were in that type of business as well. And the only way we're going to provide an education for our kids, and I've said it before, give them the money to educate the kids. Let Mr. Sullivan and the professionals run the services. There's nothing in there that says that we can't do that. And we can run services with some professional leadership that can deal with services much better than a teacher can, worrying about plowing the parking lots. That's not what Mrs. Whiteside did all those years for dealing with walls and parking lots and fixed vehicles. She was there to teach our kids. Am I not correct in that assumption?
Well, occasionally I had to bail my classroom out from the leaking roof, but
See,
yes.
so she duped as the maintenance guy too, right? But, you know, that's the level of discussion that's going to get this done. And we can do that. This isn't hard. It's just a matter of giving up some of the, what do you call that, sacred cows and things. You always start with an empty board, just like that one over there, and you fill it in. And that's how you get it done.
Well, those discussions need to start taking place sooner rather than later. And I know there's been some outreach. I'm not saying that.
Oh,
But
we're not
I know there's plenty
debating
of
the fact
outreach,
that
but-
the discussion needs to take place, but
Yeah.
we have started some of those discussions. We're not getting a good. I think the way to have those discussions, and the only way they're going to be meaningful, is if you have them in this room or in the room at the school. We'll go wherever they are. I don't care about them coming here, and put it on television, and let the people sit home and watch that meeting if they're too tired to come out. And let's see those answers on TV, and let's discuss this on TV. Don't discuss it in the back room because that's not going to get you anywhere.
No, I think both parties will be more inclined to cooperate if we do this out in the sunshine.
I believe so.
I just have one comment, Mr. Chairman. I think that it would be a very interesting exercise for every citizen of this town to take the town budget, overall town budget, and the number of town employees as of the last town report, then subtract 5 or 6 years, make it 6 years. I would like you to compare the number of jobs that have been created during that 5 or 6 year period.
Did you happen to read Mr. Slavin's mind? Because he's been bugging me with that for a couple of weeks now.
No, but I suspect that Mr. Slavin and I sort of sit on the right of Attila the Hun or something like that. Yeah. I have very strong opinions about how this town should govern itself, and I would agree with Mr. Tropiano, except that I would put education first and public safety second, because without public education, you got nothing. Real estate values dive, and then you have no way of supporting any budget at all.
If you had gangs in the streets and you couldn't get the kids to school safely, then what do you do? There's no law. That's the law.
Mr. Holmes, have you spent any time in any of our schools?
I haven't been in school in a long time. Classroom.
No, I'm not saying in a classroom. I'm just saying, have you done a site visit
I've been to a lot of schools, yeah.
here in Wareham?
No, I don't.
I think,
Reading things.
I think I put them on an equal level, in fact. I think they're both important.
Yeah.
And I think they're on an equal footing.
But you need to have some safety for the kids.
Absolutely. You can't have one with the other. It's like the chicken and the egg.
Right.
I mean, you can't, you could keep going around in a circle chasing your tail there.
But again, I think it's very interesting, and I would challenge us.
School's not important, right?
No, I didn't think I heard that from you at all. I think I like the discussion I heard you wanted to have, because that duplicated service thing has come up over the years a long time. And one, it was as simple as copy machines, was with the copy company, was that simple. but it was a huge amount of savings if we could, use the same services. And that discussion needs to happen. So what we need to do is get in that room. If we want to do it in front of the TV, I don't have any problem with it. Get a board, and let's put down all the things we first agree that we maybe could agree with very simply. The simple consensus kind of items that we can come across, and then start to deal with the harder ones. You know what I'm saying? You come up with whatever we can mutually agree upon rather quickly. That gets sort of the ball rolling and makes you feel good. And then you say, well, all right, since we've done that, maybe we can move on to this. And, it's not going to be an easy task. If it was easy, anybody could do it.
It is actually pretty easy. The board tells you what to do. That board tells you what
Yeah,
to do.
well,
And it doesn't take very long to get it done, except that we have to live under the charter, so you have to
Yeah.
move every 6 months.
and everybody wants to protect their turf and stuff,
When you draw it up,
but you got to,
it's actually pretty easy what needs to be done. It shows you, it'll tell you what to do, and it works out very well.
We are, of course, talking about a chart from the bottom up, right?
yes. Always.
Mr. Slavin?
Real quick, I just want to keep it up. The reason that my concern is it's for the fiscal year 2013, which you only have a few months to go. I'm not concerned about 2014. That's a whole different story. So my idea of direction is basically to give Mr. Sullivan some idea of where we stand as far as what happens. That's all. And give him a tool. He can use the tool whichever way he wants.
All right, well, I think we've gotten a lot of input on what the members think about these issues going forward. I think we're going to wind up with a direction here. As regards the immediate issue, I guess what I will do is get in touch with the chairman of the FinCom school committee, see what I can do to get a meeting together. Again, it may be that we don't get a quorum from the FinCom, and maybe the school committee is satisfied with where they are. But again, I think we need to try to make the effort. If we're going to come back before the voters sometime before fall town meeting with another town meeting, I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, well, we did make a last attempt. We threw a Hail Mary here to try to avoid this, but here we are. So with that in mind, I'll try to do that. I will make that outreach tomorrow, and I will try to get a joint meeting with them as soon as possible and advise everybody accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to say I really respect all of your opinions and that we all seem to be going in the same direction. It's great.
Yeah, we're trying to get in that direction. We just need a little help to get it pushed along.
Okay. What do we have, a defective draft warrant here?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a point of order?
ahead.
Would it be appropriate to move item F forward because it is a presentation that might take a little while, but it is also a presentation that needs our signatures and needs to be delivered by tomorrow to the state?
Yeah, that is on here. I see that Principal
Mr. Palladino is
is
here.
in the room. So, the board's indulgence, why don't we do that?
Is-
Why don't you come on up, Mr. Palladino? Just introduce yourself and explain to us and the larger audience out there what this is all about,
Sure,
please.
and I appreciate you moving me up when 6 o'clock starts at the high school. It's good to be there early. Scott Palladino, Wareham High School principal, and I'm here tonight to ask for your support in the form of a vote and a signature by the town meeting that will allow us to move forward with the Massachusetts State Building Authority Accelerated Repair Program for the Wareham High School roof. The current roof is 20-plus years old and has long outlived its life expectancy. It measures approximately 85,000 square feet, has multiple levels, angles, and cutouts. We have placed over 500 patches throughout the roof. In FY12, we stopped spending money on the roof. We felt we were putting good money into something that was bad. We have multiple classrooms that have major leaks. Mrs. Whiteside alluded to the fact that room 207 is one of those classrooms. However, the hallway is the area that's most affected when it rains. This year alone, we've had 2 teachers and 1 student that have been injured by the leaks that penetrate into the hallways. These leaks adversely affect the learning environment at Wareham High School. The water spills onto the ceiling tiles, causing them to mold and stain. We're spending thousands of dollars every year to replace these ceiling tiles to try and remediate the mold issue. We do this to assure that we don't have larger issues with the mold and air quality. I want to stress to you that the school is structurally very sound. We've done a great job with the maintenance to this building. We replaced boilers, windows, carpet, etc. The only issue that we have from a structural standpoint is the roof. In your packets, I believe you have the MSBA initial compliance certification that is required for the statement of interest, which is due tomorrow. We must include the notes from tonight's meeting as well as the vote as part of our application. In the end, this will only be supported if the MSBA chooses Wareham High School and eventually if it would be supported at town meeting. So this is just one step in the process. I think it's important to note that we've been waiting for this process to occur for quite a few years now, and they just recently opened up the statement of interest period that ends tomorrow. And I would appreciate if we can have support moving forward with this process. Sure.
Any questions from the board?
The roof is it's an EPDM membrane. It's basically they put in rolls. I believe they're 10 feet wide and they seam them, and then it's got a ballast system that's obsolete, and so basically they have stone, 3/4 inch stone that's put on top of the roof as a ballast. The issue has been, quite frankly, trying to find the leaks, because you've got to shovel off thousands of pounds of rocks to get to the problem, and where it penetrates the building isn't necessarily where it's penetrating the membrane. It's going to the lowest point, so it's like finding a needle in the haystack. Well, that right. I would assume, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I would assume we would have a similar roof to what we did with the gymnasium roof, where it's a similar EPDM system. The difference is it's adhered to the roof itself. There is no ballast, so if there was an issue, you could see the issue. So it's a much better system, and it would come from a reputable company. Going back, the issue with this roof is the company that put it down was out of business before the school opened. We hired a company out of Hanover. Gibson Roofing was the low bid on the gymnasium roof, and they're a wonderful company, and they've been in business for, I believe, 30 some odd years, and envision they'll be in business for more than 20 years when the roof does come out of warranty.
Mr. Slavin?
Scott, what's the actual total cost of the roof projected, approximate bid?
We're estimating $1 million for the roof is our estimation, but I would like to say, let's keep in mind, we estimated, I believe, $110,000 for the gymnasium roof, and Derek, you can help me out. I believe it came in
85.
I thought it was in the 70,000 range.
About 75, even with the having to take the snow off of there.
Right,
so.
right.
There's
So
some
I'm
disposal
hoping that
costs.
if the timing works out and it's a similar timing, from what I got from a lot of the roofing foremen, is that the month of December and January is pretty quiet for them, and they were very hungry to bid on that job. So if that timing comes up that it aligns to what we did with the gymnasium roof, we may be in good shape.
The amount of percentage the MSBA is going to cover?
We anticipate that to be somewhere between 58 and 64%.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at a minimum of $350,000 at town meeting for a debt exclusion?
That's ballpark, correct?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Selectman Whiteside?
I don't have any questions. I certainly support Mr. Palladino's presentation. I've seen paint slough off the wall. I've seen higher up into that ceiling than I thought it began. I've been on the roof several times. Surprised you had to move a lot of rocks because the wind blows the rocks off. Anyway, I'm ready to make a motion.
Selectman Holmes, would you like to speak on this? I just, before we go ahead with the vote here, I just want people to understand, this is an authorization for the school to go ahead before the Mass School Building Authority and apply for, this is essentially a grant.
Correct.
And the additional funding necessary, remember we just heard Principal Palladino tell us that he anticipates somewhere between 58 and 64% of the cost, the estimated cost to come back from the state. Town meeting will decide whether substantially to go forward with this project in the form of a vote for to borrow for the rest of the project. So the vote tonight isn't to spend anything, it's just to authorize the process to begin.
Right.
So with that in mind, could we have a motion, please?
Yes. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on March 20th, 2013, the School Committee of Wareham, Mass., in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated April 10th, 2013, for the Wareham High School located at 7 Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass. 02571, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority category or categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future to replace the approximately 81,000 square foot existing 22-year-old ballast roof with a brand new non-ballasted EPDM roof, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the Wareham School District to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Yes. Aye.
500.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for moving that forward. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, if we could have the next item.
Next item is the election warrant for Senator Congress. Plymouth County, to either of the constables of the town of Wareham, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town of Wareham who are qualified to vote in the special state primaries to vote at Precinct 1, Wareham Town Hall, 54 Marion Road. Precinct 2, Ethel E. Hammond School, Highland Ave. Precinct 3, Minot Forest School, 63 Minot Ave. Precinct 4, Deacon School, 760 Main Street. Precinct 5, Deacon School, 760 Main Street. Precinct 6, Lodge of Elks, 2859 Cranberry Highway, on Tuesday, the 30th day of April 2013, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purpose: to cast their votes in the special state primary for the candidates of political parties for the following office: Senator in Congress for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Hereof fail not, and make return of this warrant with your doings thereon at the time and place of said voting. Given under the hands of this 9th day of April 2013, Stephen Holmes, Alan Slavin, Peter Teitelbaum, Patrick Tropiano, Judith Whiteside.
Okay, the motion's made. We have a second. Any discussion? Just so people know what's going on, this is the formal election warrant calling for the primary election for U.S. Senator to fill the seat that's currently empty. Hearing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? 5-0-0.
Next item on the agenda is WCTV contract. Everybody come up from WCTV.
No, we'll hear them, but
He and Matt.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Margaret Ishihara. I'm the attorney for Wareham Community Television. And also present here are John White, the president, Jay Hurd, the executive director, and Tom Worthen, who's hiding on us back there, who's also a member of the board of directors.
Well, Mr. Worthen, you can come on up as well.
And Peter Barrows, I'm sorry,
Yes.
as well.
You can all come up. You're all here to do the same thing, so. Thank you.
Just to recap for the board members, and by the way, congratulations, Mr. Tropiano, Mrs. Whiteside, on your election. We were last here on March 26th, and at that time, the board voted to approve what I kind of loosely call the going forward agreement. So that's the agreement under which WCTV will provide the public education and governmental programming for the town through funds which are paid by Verizon and Comcast to the town, and then certain percentage paid to WCTV. So I have with me actually two agreements. That's the going forward agreement. That was the one that was approved the last time. The way that this has been set up, actually at the suggestion of Attorney Bowen, was to have issues having to do with past payments covered under a separate payment agreement. So the first thing that I wanted to give to the board is actually what I'm calling the going forward agreement. There are a couple of typographical things that I had to correct. The board did vote to approve it, but with the correction of certain typographical errors, and I've done that.
Did you, sorry to interrupt, but did you forward a version to Attorney Bowen as well for his final review? He's unable to be with us tonight because he's the Situate Town moderator and it's their town meeting, so.
I spoke with him very late this afternoon, and I forwarded that to him as well. But it was late this afternoon, so I don't know that he's had a chance to look at it. He did mention something about preparing for the town meeting in his own hometown.
Yeah, I'm sure he gave you the bums rush pretty quick on the phone this afternoon.
No,
but,
no, it was not the bums rush.
But,
he was focused on
well, with
other
that in
things.
mind, thank you for preparing this. I think probably the prudent thing to do would be to, well, go ahead, Mr. Slavin.
On this contract, this is the one that we basically approved with the corrections last.
That's correct.
So
the
this
board-
is just a finished piece of what we already approved.
That's correct.
So all we have to do is just town council just review to make sure
Correct.
Exactly.
That's
we don't need to
correct.
vote on this again.
Right.
So
right. Right. It would just be to review it to make sure that was in the form that was approved, basically.
Okay.
During the
Yep.
meeting, Mr. Bowen had his computer up there.
Yep.
And typed changes right into the document.
Yeah.
If you recall. Was that what
He had emailed me. What he had done is he had emailed, as we were all sitting here, emailed me list of the things, and I incorporated them into. That's just the printed version that he emailed me.
Right.
Exactly.
I believe what Attorney Ishihara just said, though, is that she found a couple of additional typos. So now we're going to play the lawyer shuttle game here.
No, I didn't find any.
Oh, you didn't
additional
find
typos.
additionals. Okay.
What had happened is the board went through, found some typos. Attorney Bowen actually sent me an email, not with the corrections made into the document, but he said, this needs to be fixed, this, and this. There are 3 or 4 of them. And so I got those, I fixed this, and this, which were typos, and that's what you have tonight. So
Okay.
if you feel more comfortable with, Attorney Bowen now looking at it, make sure that the this, and this that I incorporated into it is what was voted by the board, then fine. But that's all I did to it.
Okay.
That's all I did on that one.
Thank you.
As far as Mr. Chairman, as far as I'm concerned, after what we did, this is done. It's contract between the two. It's first one that's ever been signed, so
It's done.
we're happy to see that.
Yes, we are.
That question, the only question that remained was the payment agreement
Right, that's the second contract that,
about past dollars.
Right, that's
Right.
correct.
It has nothing to do with this.
Nothing to do with that. That's all set to go, basically.
Separate issue.
Right. It's already been voted to approve it.
We still have to sign it.
You have to sign it, though. That's,
we will. You don't need a separate motion for that or approval, that's a ministerial function. So the board has already authorized the agreement, we're just,
We won't, yeah.
We can't sign it.
no, you can't. That would just be the three of us. Well, I don't want to,
I'd like to go forward.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you would. I think we would as well, so.
There was one, and I will give you, these are actually, it's in the form of a draft. There was an issue that we couldn't quite resolve before amongst town council and Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Underhill and our subgroup, so to speak, on the payment agreement. So this is a draft of the payment agreement.
Thank you.
These are past payments, basically. I call them past due payments because that sounds better than all the names. The one piece that was outstanding on this, and let me just give a little bit of background. Under the Verizon license, unlike Comcast, which is already paid, under the Verizon license, there are two types of payments that get paid by Verizon. They make a so-called capital payment, 10 capital payments of $52,000 a year. They also make annually, I think they make them on a quarterly basis, but they also make payments which are called access payments, that's ongoing monies for operating funds. So there's two sorts of payments. The thing that we kind of got, not kind of, the thing that we couldn't quite figure out were the Verizon capital payments. And so we went round and around in a circle and said, okay, it looks like we have, I'm just going to focus on 2007, 8, 9, and 10. What had happened was the Verizon license was signed with the town of Wareham in April of 2007. I spoke with a representative of Verizon directly, Jill Reddish, who had been working on, who is a representative that handles the contract with the town of Wareham between Verizon and Wareham. And the contract was signed in April of 2007. Ordinarily, Verizon's effective date is very shortly after they sign the contract, but that didn't happen in this case. The effective date on the contract is actually December of 2007. It's kind of the date that they go online, if you will. And so what happened in there is that basically there were payments that were, there was a payment that was missed. There should have been a payment within 30 days of December 20th of 2007. There should have been a payment on the anniversary date of the effective date, which would be December 20th of 2008, and then December 20th of 2009, and December 20th of 2010. The one that didn't happen was a December, it looks like, was a December 20th, 2008 payment. And it got a little bit confused, I think, because of that whole effective date issue and the fact that Verizon's looking at it saying, because the December 20, 2007 payment wasn't made till the beginning of 2008. And I think from their point of view, they might have looked at it and said, we paid 2008. Well, you didn't. You paid the 2007 payment. You just paid it at the beginning of 2008. I spoke with Jill Reddish, and she actually spoke to the town administrator as well. And she went back and very promptly and very courteously, in a courteous fashion, went back and looked at it for us. And she said, you know, you're right. Verizon owes the town the December 2008 payment. So, Mr. Holmes, so we did find some money. So your wish has been, your wish has been granted. It was money that.
I'm sorry, there's no check coming from this table, so just so you know. If you found it somewhere else, that's fantastic.
Right.
You did a good job.
In any event, the other thing that she agreed to do on behalf of Verizon is that she's actually going to be here to meet with Mr. Sullivan, I think Friday.
Correct.
She's going to bring the December 2008 payment check with her. So the town's records that show what payments were received as of Friday anyways, and our records that show what should have been received are now square. The payment agreement that you have in front of you reflects that. So, yeah, let me just walk through it a bit.
Yeah, why don't, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. The, who? Yes, he had actually, because I had, earlier, before the last meeting, I had actually sent him a draft of this, and then we went back and forth on the whole. I sent the draft, the way I set up the draft was, I assumed that we were correct about the payments, but then we got hung up on whether Verizon in fact made all the payments they were supposed to. So he has seen this, but I have not heard back from him, affirmatively. Every single word is fine. I think the way we had left off when I talked with him at the last time we were here was, you know what, there's this issue on the capital payment that's outstanding. Let's see if we can resolve it before we go forward. We don't want to have a big question mark and just have this come up later. Let's get it all resolved now, have
Right.
everyone on the same page about what needs to be paid and what's owed and all that.
Okay. Good.
This is a request for us, for the town, to pay WCTV,
Correct, that's correct.
but some of it goes back to the year 2010.
That's correct. Yes.
I am not, can we do that without going to town meeting? The paying of bills that were incurred in a previous fiscal year have to come before town meeting as unpaid bills?
I'm not sure of the answer to that, but these funds come from their licensing fees or whatever. They come from Verizon and Comcast. They're held separately. Yes, they're held separately. They're not.
This is all pursuant
Right.
to a contract,
Right.
or in our case, we were operating kind of without a contract, but with an implied contract for a long time. And so what this is it's sort of a recap, look back. The funds, Mr. Sullivan can tell you exactly where they are.
This isn't one of the fund sources that was raided. The money.
Yeah, we left this one
The
alone.
money is
so we-
there. The money is
So the long
there.
and short of it is that we don't have to print this money. It does exist, and it's sequestered from the rest of our funds, so.
It wasn't part of it.
Yeah. The nature of the payments from Verizon and Comcast. Verizon and Comcast are obviously in heavily regulated industries. They're required to make these payments to provide for public access television. It's a part of their license. It's a part of the federal regulation. It's part of their requirements of doing business. And then the town enters into an agreement with Wareham Community Television, basically, to provide those services. But I understand they are in separately designated funds.
It's in the correct accounts for
Right.
holding them there.
Right. The so going through this, basically the recitals are they recite the two licenses that are in play here, if you will. One is Comcast, which is the license between Comcast and the town. Actually started earlier than the one with Verizon. So it's dated April 1, 2005. It's a 10-year contract. So it ends March 31st, 2015. Verizon, as we talked about, the license is dated is dated April 17, 2007. For a 10-year term ending on December 20th of 2017. So that's just basically the two licenses that we're talking about here. And the payment agreement is the town agreeing to pay WCTV the following. So this discussion actually on the payments has actually been going on since before actually I was involved in this, but paragraph 1, which talks about the $7,906.72, my understanding is that came about sometime in, I think, 2011. And after the WCTV accountant and the town looked at it. As it turns out, there were some issues in terms of the way and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is a little past history for me, but the way in which the percentages were calculated. So the agreement between the town and WCTV, the cable companies, Verizon and Comcast, pay 4.5% of their gross revenues of their basic service. I'm paraphrasing. That's a paraphrase. The town of Wareham keeps 0.5%, and Wareham Community Television is paid 4%. So actually, there was some rounding issues or just some calculation issues as to how much was going to be paid to WCTV, and that accounts for the $7,906.72. I think that's a correct statement.
Selectman Slavin?
That was a rounding issue. They just, when they divide basically, and the
Right.
percentage was off a fraction, but the amount of money involved over a period of time, that's what the difference is.
Right.
That much is already checked out, okay.
And I think that's right. And so paragraph number 2, we may be fairly close to resolving that. Mr. Underhill provided a lot of documentation having to do with this earlier time period. And what we're saying on this is that we need a chance to look at the earlier documentation just to make sure that there isn't some other issue in the calculation. Frankly, I think what might have happened in this earlier time period with Verizon, it may be in fact that Verizon didn't make any payments in that time period, that they were either not online or they didn't have enough customers or enough revenue, and they just didn't pay the town anything until after March of 2008. But we have a requirement in a contractual obligation to make sure that we audit, the payments and make sure that all payments that are owed are paid to WCTV.
So then, this is essentially a conditional term. In other words, if there's any money out there to be found, you're going to fill in the blank.
Right,
Okay.
correct. Well, we're not going to fill in the blank. We're not going to fill in.
No.
I understand number one. Number two, WCTV is waiting to receive additional information regarding these payments from the inception of the contract. And the town agrees to provide WCTV within 30 days of execution of those payments. What payments?
No, to provide the information. The information.
Right, so are you saying that there's money owed in number 2, or no one has a clue?
We don't know, but I just told you what my suspicion is. My suspicion is this. The Verizon license was signed in April of 2007. As we've sort of determined, they had an effective date of December of 2007. My suspicion is they didn't have any customers until their effective date. My other suspicion is that this very early time period after they went online, it could be that their revenues were such that they decided they just weren't going to make any access payments until after March 31st. We need to be able to satisfy in our minds, from whatever documentation that Verizon provides to the town or that the town may have, that there isn't some additional monies that are owed from that very early time period.
So two then, through you, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could absolutely be 0.
That's a possibility.
Okay. Well,
But-
you
But we need to keep that, we need to keep this in here because.
Well,
yeah.
you did mention earlier in your presentation about this particular part of it, that Mr. Underhill was researching the matter. I guess my suggestion would be, unless we're going to be looking at a third agreement here, it might be better to accept your presentation tonight on this and possibly wait. Did he give you any time frame on when he was going to have an answer for you?
No, I don't know. And we may just end up doing the same thing, which is to go to Verizon and say, what did you do? And they might tell me, we didn't make any payments because we made $5 in that first quarter, and we decided not to. I don't know.
Yeah, they're gonna cut a penny.
Yeah,
Give you a
well,
piece
you
of
know.
that.
Paragraph number 3 is what I've been talking about for a while, which is the capital payments. So under a previous vote, actually I think back in 2011, WCTV is paid $29,701.80 of the $52,000 annual capital payment. We, at least I think, seem to be on the same page as to the time period. So it would be the capital payment for December 20th, 2007, the capital payment for December 20th, 2008, 2009, and 2010, which are still outstanding and have not been paid to WCTV. There was a payment, and I'm not sure why it was this amount. There was a payment of $19,366 for that time period. So we take that away from the $118,800, and you end up with $99,434. I'm not sure why the $19,000 was already paid, but it was in that time period.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is what you're saying, that Verizon still owes the town?
No.
You're saying the town was paid this money and never paid WCTV?
Right, the town
Well,
was
I
paid.
think that's been where some of the big arguments have been right along.
Well, the town was paid December 2007, December 2009, December 2010. You will be paid as of Friday for December 2008. That's kind of where we were getting stuck on this, because we went round and round on, well, you know, the town says we only have 3 payments, and we said you should have 4, and you should pay us for 4. And now we've determined that, in fact, Verizon just didn't pay the December 2008 payment, which they will at this point.
I know Mr. Slavin's been involved in this. I believe he might have something to say with regards to this that might explain it.
So what you're saying, Margaret, is that $29,701.80, you did not receive one of the 4 payments, or we don't have it in town, therefore it's not been in our books at all. What we've already agreed to and basically audited to is everything but the $29,701.80. That's the difference that we have between our records and yours as far as Matt Underhill has for money coming in. Plus the $7,900 in rounding errors.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's 2 issues, okay? There's 2 issues. One is, what has Verizon paid the town? Okay, so Verizon did not pay December 2008. Which in a few days is going to be moot because they're going to. So as of Friday, Verizon will have paid December 2007, December 2008, December 2009, and December 2010, the $52,000 for each of those years. Okay. However, what we're saying is that WCTV was not paid the $29,701.80 per year from each of those capital payments, which we say that we're owed. If you multiply that times the 4 years, you get $118,800. For some reason, because I wasn't involved in this, the town paid WCTV $19,366. Which WCTV acknowledges it received on October 6th of 2008, leaving, from our point of view, a net amount remaining due to WCTV of $99,434.
Well, again, we went through all of it, and we basically come up, with we had everything dialed in about 20 so days ago, and the one issue was you were questioning whether or not we had received the 4th payment.
Right.
From Verizon. So it
Right.
turns out Verizon didn't pay the town yet. So
That's correct.
The town
Now
is
they
owed
are.
the money, and therefore that portion of the town, when we get it, then WCTV gets its portion.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we're looking at basically $29,701 coming back to you in addition to what we've already audited and received so far. That money doesn't exist right now. We haven't got it. The other issue about anything happening in the first couple months of the operation of the cable station in Wareham, we would have to, I guess, sit down with town council and ask the question about whether or not we or you has to go search out the revenue or not, if there is any due. I think at this point here, that's pretty much of a moot point. I'm not sure we're going to find anything.
I don't think you're going to either.
So all I'm saying is the numbers we have here is what we agreed to with what the town records have for cash in hand, except for that one payment for Verizon, which is, when I spoke to you about it before, I thought that they had started as of 2008 because that first payment we got was, I think, in March of 2008.
Right.
And we never got a payment of any kind for 2007. And what you're saying is they actually owed us a payment for 2007.
It's not clear where that payment should be allocated, but they owe you one payment.
Okay.
So I guess in my mind,
In those 2 years.
right, I guess in my mind, just based on the timing of the 2008 payment, because it was paid sort of closer to December of 2007, and it was the first payment that the town actually received, I attributed it to the December 2007 payment. It may, in fact, in their minds, or another way of looking at it might be they never paid the payment for December 2007, and that's really the capital payment that was due in December 2008.
Most
But
likely,
either way,
yeah, most likely they didn't pay the second payment in 2008.
that's
in
what I
that
think.
fiscal year they should have paid. So
Right.
the bottom line is, again, all it is we agree up to a certain point where we basically didn't have an agreement. Was you were looking for that fourth payment you felt was due.
Right.
We didn't have any records of it, therefore they've agreed to it. So again, I'll repeat again to make this, use the old KISS principle. It's real simple. We have everything in hand as far as the dollars. We've audited out and we have everything in place except for the $7,900 rounded off for the rounding errors and the $29,701.80. Everything else in the agreement is okay except for those two figures as of today.
Right. Everything else is okay in terms of, you have the money or whatever.
That's not Selectman Whiteside?
I have a question. And it's aimed at two different directions, or three maybe, I guess. How do you get into a situation where you're looking at something that's due from 2008, 2009, 2010, and there are three sets of people who can't answer the question? Do we keep an account of accounts receivable?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no.
Chairman?
Yeah.
If I may. I got here 3 years ago. This was one of the first issues that were kind of on our plate when Mrs. Donahue was the chair. You wouldn't believe what they did to try to get us to this. It's taken us 3 years, Mrs. Whiteside, to get to this point, just to verify accuracy of anything. In the initial years, I still have the documents at home in the cellar somewhere. I'm sure we could pull them out. But in the initial years, it was just kind of, there was no way to take a check from Verizon or Comcast. We saw those come to the town. Don't look at him. It's nothing to do with him. It's long before he was almost born. And unfortunately, yeah, he's off the hook. He's off the hook on this one. But we could see the checks come to the town, and that's where it gets hazy because the town at that time, I remember sitting here 3 years ago, claimed that they actually paid some of the bills. Remember that conversation, gentlemen?
That's what that
Mrs.
$19,000
Shashar wasn't here at that meeting. But the town actually said that they paid some of the bills for WCTV. It was very cloudy. So
I guess I'd like to really ask
there
the
was never-
question again.
here's the biggest problem is I saw it back then, and that's one of the things that we worked so hard to get this done on this past year was there has never been a signed agreement between the town of Wareham and WCTV.
I understand.
That's where the biggest problem lies, because things were just done, and it's that's why I'm very concerned about what these numbers are, because again, I disagree with you, Alan. You and I are not totaling up the same thing. Number 3 says we owe $99,434, not $29,000.
No, we agreed to the $99 if we get $29,000.
So what this is saying, though, is that the town,
That's what I'm saying. If we don't agree right now by 29,701 with that figure right now.
well, if you leave it like this, the town is what this agreement says so far is that the town's gonna pay this $7,900. Then the town's gonna pay this $100,000 over here,
99.
maybe
If-
71.
No, if we get the money.
Right, we're gonna pay this $100,000.
If we get the other
Right. And if we don't, it'd be 129, is what you're saying.
No, it'd be 29 less.
Be 29, well, that's what I just said, 71.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far, we're up to a significant amount of money. It seems like it's going right back to the same meeting I sat in 3 years ago, Mrs. Whiteside. So I don't know that's why I'm starting to look a little dismal here, because I don't see any progress being made here from that very first
I
meeting
guess my
sat in
question
3 years
is,
ago.
if you did address this issue 3 years ago, and I believe
Well, we
you.
started to address it. Let's
Well,
just put it that way.
If you have a check coming into the town, made payable to the town of Wareham, now I know why the audit says the things that it says. I'm not looking at you. About, as noted in previous audits. Guys, you cannot run a business and not know where your income's coming from. You can't track it properly?
I tell you,
You're out of your mind.
I have a simple question I have to ask, and maybe it's too simple. All right, so the checks come in, right? The checks come in from the various cable companies, right? They get put into a separate account. What's the balance in the account?
Yeah.
How simple is this?
Again,
No,
your
you
question
might
is too
be-
simple
look-
and the answer is too complicated.
No, the point is, you might be missing a payment, and that's okay. That's an accounting issue that you have to deal with. But there has to be X number of dollars in there right now.
There
So
is,
if you're talking,
there is,
okay.
there is.
So
We've
this
gone
is-
through that piece.
All right, so this seems pretty simple then. So we have X number of dollars. See, my problem with this is according to this agreement. If we signed this agreement today, this is going to go on forever, because you still have this thing in here. The parties need to resolve outstanding compensation issues and so on. And I would not like to see it go on forever. I'd like to see you guys get your money. I'd like to see it over and done with, and I'd like to not see this in here. Okay?
That's what we would like also.
And
That's what we're trying to get to.
well,
Seriously.
it just seems like it should be a lot simpler than this.
It is. At
It,
this point.
it is.
It's
actually.
simpler than it was.
The-
That's all I can say to you.
I actually negotiated the Comcast contract in 2005. So Verizon wasn't here at the time. We actually sat in a room and got this thing done. So I'm
No,
very
actually,
familiar with the way it was laid out.
Actually, on the to respond to your question, I don't know on the town side because I haven't looked at.
Right.
This is what the town records show. However, I do know that Mr. Underhill went through and said, "Here's the payments that we got from Verizon." All right. So I'm assuming that's also a statement which says, "Here's what we have, in some bank account somewhere." I have to assume that. So, the
They recorded the liability.
Yeah.
Mr. Underhill is the IT director. Is that the same Mr. Underhill we're referring to?
Yes.
Yes. For some reason, he was
My
tasked.
my
with
question
this.
would not be through you to Mr. Sullivan. I respect Mr. Underhill quite a bit, but I'm more interested in what the accountant has to say about this in the accounting department. We don't run receivables and payables through IT.
Not usually.
Last time I checked. And
What is
Biz,
Kinda with you
on that.
Biz, and oh God, Mrs. Lawson.
Yeah.
Is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
They were.
Who's the first
She was doing. Miss Liaison was
Yeah, I
doing
think
the
so.
research on this. Last I knew. So, I'd like to know what it says in the finance books.
Okay.
That's what. And you're a finance guy. You understand what I'm asking you.
Yep.
That's what's important. Not what Mr. Underhill has recorded.
I think, if I may, Mr. Chair, we're getting off track here. What they're saying was it was hazy back when you started in, 2007, 2008. We have worked and are agreeing on these numbers here as of today.
Oh, you agree with these numbers?
the numbers that they have run on there. I remember that Mr. Underhill at one point had said that there was some money spent out of the capital because they were allowed to do something to build infrastructure. And that was one of the questions. So I think we're getting a little bit off track on this. I know that we need to have the financial.
Mr. Chairman, through you, if
Yeah.
you have the research done, let's see it in the packet.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to vote on this tonight. That's pretty clear.
I have a
I think we need a
question.
lot more
Planning to vote on
information.
this?
I don't see how we can vote on this.
Oh, no.
No, not
I
at all.
want to know
It's-
what the balance of the account is as of per the town account. And I want to know how it is segregated. And if it isn't segregated, why isn't it segregated? And why wasn't it easier to answer the question?
Well, I
You
think
shouldn't have
Mr.
to-
Sullivan's got a response.
The accounts are segregated.
No, but
They
they have
are,
to make
they
sure
would
they have
be
the
called the PEG Comcast, PEG Verizon account. They are segregated. Each account has its own name, one for Verizon, one for Comcast.
Right.
We can run the report, have the numbers on there of what the balance is in that account,
How
and
long
have it
has that
simple.
been,
No, this is Matt's spreadsheet.
The,
don't mind me
Problem.
asking
They're
that
asking a different.
I remember as of,
question. I
if
think
you
it's
remember,
gonna
the
be the
question was
same
asked to me, do
information,
we
but-
have monies of those accounts? And I simply can go into the Vadar system, pull up that number.
Excuse me.
Do you know?
I don't know. I would have thought it would be from day one. It should be. Because those are two separate items. One's coming from Verizon, one's
I
coming
don't
from
think so, right?
Comcast.
That hasn't been separated from day one, has it? If
I-
it was separated from day one, we
don't-
wouldn't have an issue.
Yeah,
Well-
we know exactly what was going on here.
We wouldn't have an issue today.
Well, we don't have, the issue has not been, other than the one capital payment I described, the issue really has not been the amounts of money that you've received per se. Though I think that you're asking a slightly different question, which we don't have visibility to per se, which is what's the town account, what's the accounting department show. I have a spreadsheet that Mr. Underhill had put together based on the information he had, and I think he might be the first stop as to when the check comes in. So, based on that information, I've put together, and let me just sort of quickly go through the rest of it. The rest of the paragraphs have to do with the so-called access payments. So the same percentages apply to, in the case of Comcast, semi-annual access payments, in the case of Verizon, quarterly payments. The amounts in paragraphs 6 and 7 are the amounts that we're saying are outstanding owed to WCTV, based on that 4% and 4.5%, and the town retaining 0.5% contract. So that's where I get that. The numbers that I have in there in terms of what's owed, what we say is owed to WCTV, are based on the spreadsheets I had received from Mr. Underhill. So that's all I have.
Chairman,
And
Just
also
briefly,
the access payments up until fairly recently, and one capital payment as well, actually had been being paid right along. So what we're claiming as outstanding time periods for Verizon and Comcast really are just over the last year, so just over 2012.
Selectman Slavin and then Selectman Whiteside.
Where we have two new people in who haven't seen any of this at all, I would suggest that we come back to this in a week or after town meeting, and everybody gets the paperwork, goes through. The town administrator, if he could, provide everybody with paperwork that I got in order to do the audit and go back and forth. I don't feel comfortable having everybody just depend on what I say. I'd rather have them see what's going on. I believe we can track every dollar coming in. At least I was able to, and we have payments that are current that are sitting waiting.
Right.
I believe as the payments came in, basically it went through our accounting system, and what we did is probably at least recognize the invoice but never issued the check on some of it. So it's in the system. It's been recorded and recognized. I know that. So rather than sit there and go back and forth and keep going in a circle here, I think we should table this for a couple of weeks, make sure everybody's there, make sure town council is okay with the little changes in case there's anything that is missed anyways, and then both Selectman Tropiano and Selectman Whiteside will have a little more confidence in discussing this. I'm a little uncomfortable right now because there's obviously questions, and I didn't bring my folder with me, so I can't sit there and show them, but that's not the way it should work anyways. They should have the paperwork in front of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it would be unfair to the new selectmen and to you, frankly, to try to have a vote on this tonight where we're still looking at information. We've got people who aren't familiar with it, and there may be some information coming soon that could be plugged directly into this agreement and figure out the couple of holes that are still in it. I'd much rather wait and sign a comprehensive agreement that settles the matter once and for all than get the board involved in a segmented approach to dealing with the problem. I know you people want the money, that's why you're here, but we have to make sure that all the amounts are in fact due and owing, and to go back and check with council and everything else. So, Mrs. Whiteside?
I still want to know why Mr. Slavin had to do the dirty work and dig up the numbers. That's nice, Mr. Slavin. I'd like to know why the town person who is responsible for answering that question wasn't able to answer that question.
Mr. Chairman, if I could for a second, we decided in April a year ago that we were going to fix this once and for all as a board.
Well, it didn't get fixed.
Excuse me?
It didn't get.
Well, it's pretty close, ma'am. It's easy to sit there and shoot bullets at people, but
I'm not shooting bullets.
This has not been. We're going back 10 years to try to figure out what happened here. And Mr. Slavin and myself were responsible for working with WCTV to have a contract that was never done in all the years that we've dealt with cable TV.
Right.
So it's not been easy to get this done. I think we're close. I got a few questions here. I got 481 on my page. So I think we're getting close. But that's why we did it. That's why we moved forward, so that we could finally put this whole thing to bed and get it done. That's why we did it.
It's been an ongoing process through the board and through these two gentlemen to try to resolve that. They have worked with accounting. They have worked with the town administrator. They have worked with council.
In the second half of that was the agreements between the town and the cable companies. And Mr. Teitelbaum, you are on that, right? It's you, and you serve on that committee.
Yeah, go ahead.
In view of the fact that this has been ongoing for multiple years, I would like to see, what I would like to see is, I would like to see whatever necessary effort it takes to get this done and back on the agenda, like next week, week after the latest. Resolve and finish, so that these folks can get on with their job of doing what they do. And we don't have to keep talking about stuff that's 3 years old. Not that, and I'm blaming any of the gentlemen here. You guys, I realize we're working hard to get this accomplished. But, at some point you gotta say, all right, let's finish it up. Let's charge across the finish line. That's a lot of money. Exactly.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the key thing here. I would rather that it took a month and we got it right than we do it in 2 weeks and then we're back in here in 3 months when somebody says, "Oh, but wait a minute, what about this?"
Well, if they're not able to do it within the week, then it doesn't go on the agenda. I mean, it goes on the agenda, but if we don't have the numbers, we can't discuss it. We simply move it forward to a date specific. Okay, but I agree with Mr. Tropiano. This is, again, not criticizing either one of you. The criticism is aimed at the accounting practices of this town. I know municipal accounting is different, but it ain't that different.
Yeah, well, it was real different for a while there, but that's all I'm going to say about that.
It had to have been.
Well, with all this in mind, is there anything further you'd like to just go through on the agreement at this point in time, or are we, you pretty much laid it out here?
No,
Yes, go ahead.
it's probably it's approaching $500,000 actually. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
480.
Yeah.
I hope the accounting department will have an account showing a similar amount of money in it. You know, when you go on and print that out, I should hope we should have the money sitting there. I mean, it seems relatively simple to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just whatever, but
It seemed relatively simple to me, too. But
I just don't.
I'm the new guy.
Anyways.
So, Attorney Ishihara, is that okay with you? Will you?
No, that's fine. I understand the
Yeah.
board's concerns. And I do want to say, even though
No, I'm sorry to have to drag you back in here again, but that's, we
no,
have
I
to have
think
some
we are
certainty.
very close. It may not seem somewhat that way because of the amount of discussion that we've had, but we really are, I have to say, a lot closer to this than we have been in the past. And I do want to say, and I think the board would agree with me, that we appreciate the board's efforts on getting this done and across the finish line, as you say. So
Well, it is
when
pretty
would
close.
you like to? Yeah, when would
You've
you like
narrowed
to
it
have us
down
back?
from about 15 issues down to 2, which is frankly better than I thought anybody was going to be able to do.
That's fine with me, if that's fine with you folks.
What would you propose for a timeline? You're the one who's working on it, you folks. And you've had the contact
can
with
speak to that.
Verizon and everything else, so.
We were just discussing allowing the town to go forward with its business with the budget and get in the discussions and get that out of the way, get the town meeting out of the way. We're willing to wait until after that period, if that's okay.
The first meeting in May. How about the first meeting in May?
We'll certainly
Let's
have
look
all
at
the
the calendar
information
here.
by then.
That's an extremely generous offer.
That is very
We
generous.
want to get the town business taken care of. We know the money's there, that's owed to us. We know it's there.
So
We're just
May
waiting
7th
for
is
it.
good for you?
That's fine.
Good with the board?
Fine.
Okay, I'll make a note to get that on the agenda for May 7th. And if there's anything you need in the meantime, which of course you are, please keep Mr. Sullivan in the loop, Attorney Bowen. Mr. Slavin, you have something to add?
Margaret, you said that they should be coming and visiting us with a check.
They are, in fact.
Do you know, is that next week or
No, that's this Friday. They're meeting with
Friday.
Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Sullivan?
And bringing a check.
Okay. It would be good if we follow how the check goes through the system so we know exactly how the process is too. Just in case the reason I mention that is I
Yeah.
believe the town of Wareham was going through and redoing their accounts back a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we renumbered a bunch of accounts and changed things, so I have a little
Oh.
concern about that. If you remember.
Okay.
Because I had to work through that.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's fine. Mr. Chairman, next item on the agenda is discussion of regional trash facility. I have no paperwork here on it, so I'm not sure who brought that up.
I didn't bring it up.
I can just tell you that one of my favorite things is going to the dump.
Well, I think that's all the discussion we need on that. If we don't have any information, let's move on.
Okay, next one will be an update of Summer 2014 celebration. Mrs. Smith?
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. I just would like to congratulate Mrs. Whiteside and Mr. Tropiano, and as the town moderator, I look forward to working with both of you and to the new chairman who would serve with me on various appointing committees. I look forward to working with you as well. Just for the viewing public, there may be people watching tonight who aren't familiar with the fact that in 2014 we will be celebrating 2 special events in the town of Wareham. One will be the 200th anniversary of the attack by the British ship Nimrod in Wareham Harbor, and also the 275th incorporation of the town of Wareham. A group got together probably at the end of last fall to start planning some festivities, and the initial meetings that were held were basically to set up committees, which I had gone over with you, I think at the first of the year, around the holiday time, that we have various committees that are set up that are overseen by a steering committee, and they would include fundraising, marketing, publicity, web development, vendors, finance, logistics, historical committee, government relations, volunteers, public outreach, beautification, and the arts. So we have put together chairmen of those committee, and it's their function to go out and get volunteers to serve with them. And at this point, what I would like to suggest, if there is anybody in the viewing audience who is willing to, at this point, step up, I'd like to give you our email address. We also have a P.O. box, because now's the time that we need to start recruiting people to work on these projects going forward. So the group is the Wareham Summer of Celebration Organization. It has a mailing address of P.O. Box 203 West Wareham, and the email is 2014celebration@wareham.ma.us. So anybody that would like to volunteer, we would ask that you contact us, because we certainly have events that we're going to be planning, and we are going to be looking for lots of volunteers. As we move forward, we came up with lots of ideas starting in May of 2014. Now, the problem that I'm going to start openly to say to you is it's going to be based on funding. Whether or not we will be able to accomplish this very ambitious plan that we have will depend on funding. We will start in May, around Memorial Day, with what we would like to call Wareham Pride Week. And we would be asking the entire town to pitch in and clean up. I know that was a call earlier in the meeting. We will be having a door decorating contest. We will be engaging the garden clubs to participate in plantings in red, white, and blue theme, for the patriotic events that will be coming up in June. So there will be lots going on, but we initially want to get this town cleaned up for the summer events. We will start on Memorial Day with an ecumenical service, along with the festivities that the various veterans groups plan for Memorial Day. One of the things that we have tried to do was to engage the youth of the town, and we would like to get the youth, and we have reached out to the Buzzards Bay Productions to engage the students to choose different people in the history of our community and research them and then portray them as characters. So that will be around the Memorial Day period. The whole month of June will be dedicated to the historical War of 1812 and the attack by the British on Wareham Harbor. There'll be a whole month of exhibits. We're planning on having speakers come in to talk about the War of 1812. And then on the actual anniversary, although it falls on a Friday, so I'm not quite sure how that will work out because students will still be in school. But what we'd like to do is actually have a reenactment of the attack on Wareham Harbor. We have identified a sloop that perhaps will be available for that. We will be coming back before this board to reactivate the militia of the town. They've never been actually deactivated. So what we would like to do on May 13th, 14th, and 15th is to have a 3-day reenactment where we will have militia actually have an encampment. So any one of you who would like to sign up, I'm sure we can find knickers in your size. But that will be a whole military theme of that weekend with a parade where we would engage a lot of the military groups to participate in the parade down to Bessie Park for the re-encampment. We will utilize ROTC, Coast Guard, Navy, whatever we can get to participate. That will be a whole sort of military weekend. The following weekend, we're looking probably at a townwide clam bake and a blessing of the fleet. And then at the end of the month, probably a very large concert to finish off the month. Then we move into July, and in July that is actually where we start beginning to celebrate the history of Wareham. And again, it will be a whole month of historical displays where we will document the history of the town and have displays, hopefully in the Town Hall auditorium for the whole month. That brings us up to 4th of July weekend, and what we would like to do is to have, actually, again, engaging the Buzzards Bay production and the students of the town, do an actual history of the town of Wareham as a performance. As we sit and talk, a lot of us have little bits of history, but we really don't know the history of the town. So an interactive type of performance where we'll bring some of the history live to the community. That also will be the weekend of the fireworks. And then we would like to have probably an old-fashioned baseball game between the fire and police departments, municipal maintenance, the Board of Selectmen, as a family night out. Moving up to about the 10th of July, we will have probably birthday cake, townwide birthday cake with a concert. And then the weekend of the 12th and 13th would be the Founders Ball. Very formal ball. And on the 13th, a huge parade, including afterwards, what we would like to do is a old-fashioned fire muster. We have contacted, and I can't off the top of my head think of the name of it's the Antique Hand Tub Club of New England. So instead of having up-to-date modern fire trucks, we're going to have the old-fashioned hand tubs. So it will be a competition, and we will recognize the fire and police afterwards. That brings us up to about the time of the Cape Cod Canal celebration and other festivities that will be going on all summer down in Onset and that kind of thing. Now, having said that ambitious project that we've put forth, we know it's going to cost money. So in order to be able to apply for grants, for funding from the state, from funding from boards of tourism, we have actually filed the paperwork to become a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That will allow us to seek money through sponsorship, allowing businesses to donate, allowing the public to donate, setting up a fund so that they can use it as a tax write-off. So we feel that by doing that, we have a better shot of trying to fund a lot of our projects. One of the things that's been difficult for us is to try to come up with ideas for fundraising, and we had the opportunity actually to bring a circus to town this year. We could not identify a place to have it. The circus that we have in mind, it's a one-ring circus. They're descendants of the Ringling Bonham and Brothers Bailey Circus Group. Absolutely fantastic group. We've researched them. They come into Berkeley every year. It came upon us pretty quickly. We weren't able to identify, so I would like you to put on your thinking caps, or if anybody out there can identify somewhere where we might be able to have them for next year. They need about a 350 by 350 foot lot. They have to have water, whether it's water that's there or we could truck it in, we could put a truck up. They come in, they do 2 performances, roughly about 1,000 tickets, but it is something we would really like to do for next year, and it would be the end of June. So if you can put your thinking caps on, we just have walked a lot of properties in town, paced it out, and either the property was good, but there was no parking. So that's something we need some help with, if someone could identify some property where we might be able to do that.
Actually, Mr. Tropiano had his hand up first.
Sorry.
He was
Actually have a spot that might fit the bill. Do you know the corner of Red Brook Road?
I know exactly the lot you're talking about.
There's an 8-acre parcel right there, right? Now, when they came to do the movie, they sent a cutter in there and they cut that whole thing down and they parked a gazillion cars in there when they were doing the movie. And it's quite a large parcel. It's like 8 acres. So you probably could park your cars and set everything else up in there. It is a little complicated because of the intersection, but it might work. The other thing I wanted to say about this is, when I was running, one of the things I said is the thing that's bothered me the most was how I remember when I first came here, 35 years ago to live on a permanent basis, people would say, "Oh, you're from Wareham?" You'd get this "you're from Wareham" thing, right? And I really didn't like it, but I ignored it because the people in the town didn't think that way. And in recent times, it seems like we've kind of bought into it. So you hear people from inside the town saying, well, that's Wareham, you know. And I always thought that we need to put something in place that starts to talk about the positives of this town. And this is perfect. I mean, this is the greatest idea since ice cream for this town as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think, you know, we can start to talk about the positives, get people working together. I mean, I'd love to help. I mean, you got some knickers? I'll be in knickers. Whatever. You want me to get in a dunk tank? Whatever you want. I mean, I'm willing to help. Whatever you need.
Well, now that you've brought that up, one of the ideas, and I really didn't want to get into this because it's not a definite, but one of the ideas that we do have is we have someone that is willing to replicate some old-fashioned stocks. So either you can pay people to put people in, or you may have to raise money to get yourself out. But that is, we have a lot of other ideas. I mean, I don't want to keep you here all night, but this has been an actually incredible experience to come up with these kinds of things. And again, the issue is going to be funding it and what we can do. We're starting to meet every 2 weeks. We'll be inviting the business community in next week for sponsorships. Reaching out and actually talking with the gentleman who put together the Fairhaven Bicentennial to get some ideas as to how they paid for their festivities. So there is a lot of work to it, but we're getting there. It's a slow process. We will get there. Now we need to just gel it all together and make it work.
Mrs. Whiteside?
I have a suggestion. The Viking Theater group in the high school, several students several years ago actually did guided tours through the Historical Commission of the Fearing Tavern and some of the other places, and they were dressed in period costume. Certainly a school community partnership to, you know, portray historical figures would be great. The other thing that would be really awesome is that in high school they study American history, and what better way to make it relevant than to bring it right to the front door.
This is just awesome, I'm telling you.
Yeah, we have two ladies who are chairing that end of the festivities to work with the school, getting the school children involved, both in art projects, juried art in the high school of maybe places in Wareham or something relative to that period in time, whether it be a drawing of a sloop or whatever. So we do have intentions of working very closely and bringing this in to the school. And I think having the two gentlemen to come and talk about the War of 1812, not only to the public but to the school, is going to be really very interesting and worthwhile. The other thing I wanted to bring up is back at, I can't remember, it was the 250th. We had invited the mayor from Wareham, England.
It was the 250th.
The 250th. I have had correspondence from a woman in England who wanted to connect with the Boy Scouts in the town of Wareham to do a badge project. From that, I have the name of the clerk of the town of Wareham. So I think at some point in time we may want to discuss, maybe the chair and I could get together as to a formal invitation to the mayor of Wareham, England. I would love to take a trip over and invite her personally or him personally. Yeah.
No
But,
funding.
yeah. No, I would do it on my own. England is a place I would love to go. I'd love to see Wareham, England. I would be willing to go over and hand deliver your invitation. I'm making that offer. I'm not sure my husband would be real happy that I'm saying that, but I would love to do that. And I think, you know, a contingency to go over to Wareham, England would be great.
I think issuing that invitation sooner than later is probably
Absolutely.
a good idea.
Absolutely. We need to get it done
We don't know how busy
quickly.
that mayor is.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Slavin?
We've been working on this for quite a while now. Claire has been doing a tremendous amount of work. I've been doing some. Bob White behind Claire has been involved. We have a lot of projects, but we're going to need a lot of bodies, and we're going to need a lot of ways to raise funds. The town, obviously, for the 2014 budget, has no money put aside. It's going to involve police, EMS, fire, etc., because you're looking at 100,000 people at a time coming to the canal celebration, which comes the end of July, first week in August, and these things that we do could have 10 to 20,000 people at a time. So we're going to have to come up with unique ways to do it. It's a little bit of a problem for myself and Mrs. Smith because we're elected officials, and we finished up the 501c3 paperwork last week. Once we become official that way, we both have to back off a little bit because we'll end up getting problems. So we need people to come forth. We need people to actually come up with ways of raising funds, because this, just as an idea, the Canal Celebration Group got a MOT grant for $20,000, which is just an initial amount of money to start with. They're going to have to raise well over $100,000 to $200,000 before they're done. And we obviously only need a fraction, but still, it's going to be a tough time. So I'd
Right.
appreciate whatever help anybody's willing to give us.
Absolutely, but it's going to take an army of people to get this done. And there are lots of different opportunities. Whatever your expertise is, we certainly can find a place for you.
Well, thank you for all your hard work on this. I've long thought you were the most organized person in town, and the way you marched through the calendar there just proves it once again. And I also like the idea of us having our own army. I hadn't thought of that before, and still active, no less.
It's inactive, but it's never been dissolved.
Well,
so
exactly.
they will be coming
it
back.
could be revived and perhaps put to some other uses. But anyway, thank you very much for coming before us. Anytime you need to come forward with any new news, don't hesitate to call the office and get yourself right in here.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much.
I think in particular, the militia are looking for people who might be able to play the fife and drum. So if there's anybody that's musically inclined, I know that's something that they're looking to try to find. But there's lots of opportunities. And I just want to say that we have developed a set of bylaws. We have elected offices. We have a board of directors, and that's all been approved formally. So it's been a very formal process. It will be a formal process. And hopefully by this time next year, we will be starting our big celebration.
Thank you.
Anything you need from us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Positives, positives for this town. Awesome.
Next item, please.
Next item is resolution of missing executive session minutes going back to 2011.
I believe Mr. Sullivan has something for us on that.
Yeah, we got a note that some of the stuff had come back in for prior selectmen. We got our machine back in notes. I've got the list here. I'll give to Selectman Holmes. He can go through that and take care of that. If we have any issues, we have to go on record because we've had a record request. So we have to basically do whatever we can to find these minutes so we can comply with the request for minutes.
Right. Okay. Any other town business?
Steve, anything at all? Town business, 48 hours? All yours.
Is that, you already done the liaison?
No,
No.
haven't got the yet. We have town administrator report then.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. What I'm bringing forward is requesting the Board of Selectmen to vote on Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 19. If you know me, I hate quoting chapter and verse, so simply that is to allow us to go into coalition bargaining with the unions to change their health care splits in this case. Before we had accepted the parts of 32B, sections 21 to 23, for the purposes of starting the PEC, and that would make plan design changes, changing our health care to where it would be similar to the GIC, if not entering the GIC itself. In working with the unions, and it's working. We've had a lot of meetings and going back and forth. We've made it to where the smartest option for both of the town and the union is to change the splits in the healthcare.
Just a second. Mr. Holmes has a...
Yeah, through you to Mr.
Question
Sullivan.
here.
Do you need this today, or can you wait till next Tuesday?
No, we would need it today for this, and the reason that it was so delayed is at the last meeting with the PEC, it was brought forth that this is the option that the unions would really like to go with, and it was a cost savings to the town.
I know that we were hoping to have a negotiation update and executive for the two new, and bring the two newest members and all of us up to speed as to where we are on April the 9th. But that's not going to happen until the 16th. So I was wondering if this could wait, that's all.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, the reason is that with the chapters that we've already accepted through the whole dates, the process we've gone through, basically it sunsets at the April 11th. And we have to go, if there's no agreement, we have to go to the 3-member panel and the negotiations.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Well, I'm aware of what this is all about. Are there any questions from the board on this?
No, I know what it is. Right.
Mr. Sullivan, are you looking for a motion? What type of motion are you looking for?
I am, and if you can read my hen scratch as I was going.
No
This is
problem.
The middle section.
Judy? The clerk? I believe you. Thank you.
Let's have the motion.
I move that the Wareham Board of Selectmen vote to accept Massachusetts General Law, Section 19. Said acceptance shall be revoked on June 30th, 2019, unless otherwise agreed to by both parties.
Second.
Just 1 second, just
I
for
haven't finished
clarification, I think we have to identify the general law itself and then the section. I think we just got the section
Yeah,
out.
what it is, I respectfully request that this board accept the provisions of Section 19 of Chapter 32B of the Massachusetts General Law.
Thank you.
Hadn't finished, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, and I apologize because it was the middle section. There's a sunset clause on there for a specific date and time that.
I read it June 30th, 2019.
Correct. So it's a 6-year agreement,
Right.
and unless both parties agree to continue on, then we will be removed from Section 19 bargaining.
Motion made and seconded. Anything further on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Just 5-0-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one item also that I wanted to bring forth when thinking about the direction that I'd received from the board today was I wanted to speak about a conversation I had with the acting town accountant right now. When those departments, if they were to go into deficit, they can't. She will not pass the bills through. If it's people's paychecks, they're not going to get paid. So that is the nightmare situation on there, but she is not going to allow any of the departments to spend in deficit. So
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That's good. However, once the bill's incurred, then it's going to be a problem for us anyway at some point. So really what you have to do, or what, is you have to make it clear to them that this is unacceptable, because once they incur the bill, it's down the road, it's us.
Right.
And so, I mean, even though she doesn't pay it because they submit it, it's still a bill.
it's being told to them ahead of time
Right.
that they can, if they try and enter into contract, if they try and do anything, there is no money to be paid.
It's awesome.
So that's
It's the way it is. I mean, it's the way of the world right now, and
one of the things we've been working with the finance committee is having the year-end transfers, and we don't have them yet. And they said you usually have this list of almost a whole bunch of them, and we're trying not to do that. We're trying to keep them within their budgets, so that we're not just robbing Peter to pay Paul. I know there's going to be year-end transfers this year. There's been a couple collective bargaining agreements that weren't funded from any other source, so we will have to bring those in.
right.
And we have, as I've been saying along, we have an issue with the police department. And we've been having the hard conversation, what needs to stop?
Right.
And those are incurring the costs.
Plus you had snow.
The snow and ice, the only legal deficit we can have.
All right.
We also have been alerted that we will be reimbursed roughly $113,000 from FEMA for
the
Hurricane
emergency.
Sandy. However, we're not counting on that money. We have to spend within our budgets, because if we don't receive those monies in fiscal 13, then we've gone into deficit. And like you said, the only legal ways to spend it, well, there's, besides snow and ice, is you'd have to go into emergency expenditure and request it from the Department of Revenue, which we did last year. We're not looking to do that this year. We're looking to make it within the budget.
Okay. Well, thank you. Selectman Holmes?
Chairman, thank you. Well, I think that you might have skipped a step there when you said the accountant wouldn't pay the bill. I agree with Patrick. But here's my thought on it, and I hope I'm not confused. But in January, we sat down and said, okay, we have 6 months to go, and nobody goes over.
Correct.
Now, I understand emergency. You know, we had a blizzard. I think we were at $12,000 a month that needed to be cut out of that budget because we were at 50 and change in the police overage, right? But we had 6 months to get it to zero, or 100 as I call it, and it was $12,000 a month, regardless of what it took. If the janitor had to drive the patrol car, there's no 101. Right? We all agreed to that. So I understand that, you know, we had a blizzard that took extra money and we put in for the reimbursement stuff. But regardless of that, you still have to get to 100. And that reimbursement money wouldn't come in until next year, I would assume. I don't think the state's going to pay that quickly.
We're not going to get any
They're not good. They're not good at paying those bills.
We're receiving no reimbursement for the blizzard.
Now, on the, you what?
We're receiving no reimbursement for the blizzard.
I thought we just said that it was 181,000.
Hurricane.
Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, hurricane. We're still waiting for that? The
We're
money
still
we
waiting
put in?
for the.
So it's zero for the blizzard? The
Zero.
county did not incur any costs?
We only incurred about 8.5 million, or an 8.9, which did not trigger the proper amount.
There's a threshold.
Do we know what all our numbers were for that? Because we did collect them from every department head.
Right. Realistically, the only department, Board of Health, had overtime, which they've absorbed in
Right.
their budget. The police was running normal shifts on there. Realistically.
Water
They had
treatment
some
facility had some overage?
Water pollution control facility
Right.
has the money to absorb it in their budget.
Right. Because they had to run those pumps
right.
manually or whatever with the generators.
Now the snow and ice,
Well,
it's
that's
municipal
different. That's a
maintenance.
different
They are
story.
getting the bills during that blizzard are snow and ice. So
Right.
we will go into deficit on there, and we're looking to get the last bit of costs on there.
So come June 30th, there isn't a 31 in June.
30.
No. We're at 100. All right?
We don't have any money to realistically make transfers
Right.
to.
I understand,
anybody.
but so we're still in agreement that on June 30th, we're at 100.
June 30th, it has to be 100.
Okay.
100 what?
100 means that, you know, you were given $1,000 to spend, and you spent 1,000.
Okay.
100 or lower
Okay.
is always better,
All
but
right.
nobody goes to 101,
What you're speaking about.
except for the snow and ice.
What you're speaking about is in the trending, when we're doing the trending, what you are
Okay.
versus where
Right.
you should be
Right.
for the year.
Nobody goes to 101.
No, we're gonna have to do transfers, some transfers at Springtown meeting. There's some that were collective bargaining agreements that were not budgeted.
Understood.
So,
Nobody's at 101.
But the overall,
that is the direction we've given the department heads, that's the
Okay.
conversation, that's where it's been told.
And if
so
somebody
that-
went to the accountant with a bill that took them to 101, then they shouldn't be here next week, right? That was also part of our agreement. As their manager, you'd make sure that they would be taken care of.
Did you share your theory with the
We
school?
shared it right. We
no,
shared
no,
it,
with
we
the
shared
school.
it right here at this table.
With the school.
Well, we don't manage the school.
Now, I'm not saying you manage them. You talk with them, and you should share your ideas with them so that they can see where you're coming from.
Well, we're talking about our town department.
Right.
And we-
School-
I
is a
understand that. I understand, but they have a different management structure. We can't tell them to come in at 100. We can. I know the superintendent that's his goal.
going forward, Mrs. Whiteside, that's certainly a message that I am eager to hear you provide.
I will.
They know what we're doing. I mean, it's not a secret.
I don't think they care.
Huh?
I don't think they
All right. Does anybody else have any?
Green buttons on.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything on this topic for?
And we're going to see our report in the email, our dashboard. I didn't see it in the packet. Through you, Mr. Chairman. The
Right.
dashboard.
The,
Where we're at.
Where we're at, the
Right.
one that we have is through January on there, the financials,
I
the
know, but
monthly financials.
I didn't see it tonight.
No, it wasn't in there, because you also get the memo with it as well on there, going through everything, so.
So when are we going to see it? That's my question.
I would say before the end of this week.
Oh, okay. So we'll see that via email.
Yes.
By the end of it. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
No, I'm okay with this.
Is there anything else? Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
No, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next thing is liaison reports.
Yeah, I don't, obviously, I'm not a liaison to anybody, so, yet, but I would like to see us do that, next week, get the liaison assignments.
That'll be on the agenda next week.
I appreciate
You've
that.
got,
Thank
I
you.
believe, in your packets this week, I believe, we got the various committees.
didn't see
In the
it.
past,
I didn't see
it's been kind of a first come, first served approach. I think what we'll do going forward is if everybody would pick, let's count them up here and see how many we got.
Some of them require more time than others, my dear.
Want the papers?
No, the subcommittee liaison things.
These all have to be.
Well, we've got, just on the committees, there's a separate block down here where I think the board actually has to appoint a member to serve as a member of a committee. I guess what I'd like to see is if everybody could pick 8 that interest them. Well, you've got about 35 committees on here. Now, being a liaison doesn't mean you have to go to every single meeting, and some of these bodies we're going to go through, especially what we call the board-appointed committees, and see whether they're still meeting, see whether they're still providing a function to the selectmen. And so this number may shrink depending on what the board's pleasure is going forward, but that's kind of what I'd like to see. Let's see what you people would like, and then we can try to figure it out. If you can get this in by next Monday or so, by email, that would be helpful. Is everybody okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Is it okay if there's more than one person who wants to do school, for instance?
Well, I think, well, frankly, for school, I think it's a good idea to have 2. Obviously, for the FinCom, we have a primary and an alternate.
Mm-hmm.
I think for, and I don't want to diminish the work of the other boards, but for the big boards that we're going to have to deal with, especially in the financial arena going forward, having 2 of us as liaisons would be wise. So, I'll send out a reminder email tomorrow.
8?
You've got over 30 right here, just on the top slot. So, yeah, 8.
Plymouth County, we gotta change that.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's not on the agenda.
Motion to go beyond the hour of 10 o'clock to finish up.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained, 500. Thank you, Mr. Barrows.
Keeps us on track.
Finance committee met last week. They'll be meeting again this Wednesday. They basically finished up voting on all their articles. Basically vote favorable. In the actual vote, the vote could be like 2-4, which means that they did not vote favorable action. That's the way it's worded. They've cleaned all that up. Planning board did not meet on Monday due to the district having meetings, which one member couldn't be there, another member out of town. They were supposed to have a public hearing for the marijuana dispensaries. We were looking for a temporary moratorium. That meeting has been rescheduled for April 22nd at 6 p.m. George, is that going to be cafeteria or? It's posted cafeteria at town hall. Okay. It didn't go didn't go to the library. That'll be in the cafeteria at Town Hall at 6 o'clock. That will be an actual warrant article on the town meeting, which comes sometime on the 27th or 23rd or so. Anybody interested in that should come to that meeting. It's a public meeting to discuss why we're doing a moratorium. And just as a background, the state hasn't really set their rules and regulations yet, so the moratorium is sometimes come up with a set of rules that will fit properly.
Selectman Holmes, any liaison reports for us tonight?
Actually, I haven't spoken with her yet, but I'm on the superintendent search committee, and I think that to represent the board, the best representation I think from the board would be Mrs. Whiteside, who served in that school district for many years as a leader and a teacher. And if she would serve, I would ask her first and then make a motion that she take my place on the superintendent search committee. Would you do that?
Yeah,
I don't want to put you on the spot or anything.
Can we do that? Can we substitute people in it?
Oh, yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can just
I think
say
we
that.
can. I think we probably need to get it on the agenda next week for a formal vote because we
Well,
took a formal
actually, the
prior
reason
vote.
it's part of the liaison report, or I could do it within 48 hours. She just became a member of the board at her first meeting. We have a meeting before our next
All right,
meeting.
if you're going to vote the 48-hour, then fine.
If she doesn't mind, if you'd like to do that, I think.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
She'd really like to do it, and I think
let's-
she's got the knowledge. We
Oh,
don't need
sure.
a motion. She can just do it.
Okay.
And I'll send a
Yep.
note to Mrs. Boogan.
Yeah,
And get you
okay.
on that email list.
Okay, thank you.
Fair enough. Well, that substitution is duly
Don't
noted,
need
and
a
thank you. Mr. Slavin?
Sorry. Before we close up, if they want to slap my hands, they can. Mrs. Winslow served 3 years, and unfortunately, the way the system works here, we don't have a chance, and I would hope the board, within the next few weeks or less, comes up with something as a gift, as an appreciation, has her in to present that to her. I think people forget how much personal lives are taken back by when they serve and volunteer. It's not a simple job. This job could probably easily take 60 hours a week just normally, and anybody who has to work or raise a child and also do this is really sacrificing a lot of their personal life. And 3 years for some of us is a long time. So I think we have that duty and respect to take care of that for her. Thank you.
Agreed. I just have one thing under liaison, and that is that I understand from the chairman of the Minor Forest Committee, Angie Dunham, that the Red Pine Project in Minor Forest to harvest the diseased and falling red pines is now complete. So I haven't driven down Indian Neck yet. Apparently you have, and maybe have slightly different information.
I would say that there's still some good old dead ones standing there. Quite a few.
Well, actually, that had been taken care of, as I understood it, through the Conservation Commission was going to provide the funding for police details to close the road so that we weren't dropping trees on cars. But we'll follow up on that. So, without anything further, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 500. Thank you. Good night.